Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this conditional use hearing. First item will be a pledge to the flag. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so before we begin tonight, I just want to lay out some ground rules here. And I'll turn the meeting over to our solicitor shortly. But so for those of you who have standing in this case, you will be sworn in to be able to give testimony or cross-examine. For everyone else who is not or does not have standing, there will be an opportunity for public comment at the end of the meeting. For public comment, we will limit that to 3 minutes per person. If we run to 9 o'clock tonight, still giving testimony, we will continue this meeting to another time to finish. So if you need to talk to your neighbors during this meeting, please take a conversation out into the lobby. There are no placards. There will be no calling out or interrupting a conversation at any point during the meeting. So we want to keep this running smoothly and efficiently. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to our solicitor to continue.
Thank you, Mr. Swamley, and welcome everybody. We're here for a conditional use hearing for the Mount Zion Commons project. This is a zoning hearing, zoning consideration only. As mentioned, we will follow a process here where I'm initially going to ask that all those who are requesting standing, we're going to go person by person or group by group to vet whether standing is allowed or not. And then after that, Attorney McNeil, if you're all right, I'd like to do a group swear-in for all the witnesses so that we're not doing it at every person that's rising to present testimony and or cross-examine. Then I'm going to turn over to Mr. Heilman, and we'll read into the record all applications related to the most recent submissions from the applicant, and also what processes we've followed in terms of notice. And then after that, I'll turn it over to you, Attorney McNeil, to present your case, and we'll move forward from there and then roll into public comment. So at this point in time, does anybody request standing as an objector? Okay. So standing means that you believe you've been impacted by this project and you're directly impacted by this project, and you believe you have legal rights to challenge this project either at this hearing and or on appeal if allowed. I only half heard you, and I would ask if you're going to ask that question, please come up to the microphone. But if you come up and repeat that, and then after that, what we're going to do is go right into the individuals for standing. So, are you requesting standing, ma'am?
Yes, I am.
Okay. But please provide your name.
My name is Marta Peck. I live at 90 Jameson Drive. I'll be staring up at the 4-story apartment buildings out of my back porch. The reason why I was stepping up is to clarify for people that if you wish to be considered a party, you are not required to speak. You simply you have to have that status if you want to then question any of the people, say, for example, who are testifying on behalf of Mount Zion Commons that are party to that. And in order to raise questions to them, you have to be a party. So I wanted to make sure that people understood that the importance of taking your position as a party if you're eligible, but understanding that they are not then required to speak if they don't wish to.
That's up to whomever is granted standing. So so you're our first person, and again, you said Margaret?
Marta, M-A-R-T-A. Last name is P-E-C-K. I live at 90 Jameson Drive. I will be able to look out my kitchen window and my back porch and see the 4-story apartment buildings.
We can
Right
save
there.
that portion of it until
Right.
we get into testimony.
But that's just to clarify that, in fact, it affects me. I'm not like 6 miles away.
Okay. Attorney McNeil, do you have any issue with this part?
No objection.
No objection, okay. Thank you. Sir?
I'm Mark Gephardt with Manor Management Corp., and I'd like to have standing before this
Sorry,
proceeding.
can you speak in,
Yeah. Mark Gebhard, I'm with Manor Management Corp., and I'd like to have standing among these proceedings.
okay, and Manor Management Corp. is who?
The owner of Springett's
No,
Manor.
okay.
Springett's Manor, the owner of Springett's Manor.
Okay. Attorney McNeil?
May I ask a follow-up question before I make of the potential party, before I decide about an objection?
Yes, microphone.
Come back, please.
Microphone, please. Ma'am?
I will.
Let me just hold off. We will do that. We heard you. We will make sure that everybody is on the mic, so that everybody hears. So I hear you on that. Thank you.
Just for further clarification, is Manor Management Corporation the entity that is on the deed for Springett's Manor Apartments, or are you the management company for the owner of Springett's Manor Apartments?
It's the owner of Springett's Manor Apartment.
Okay, so that's the entity that's on the deed.
I'll have to confirm that.
I would object if this is a management company entity versus the actual owner of the property, and we can verify that.
Okay, objection noted. Board of Supervisors, did you have any input, or do you choose to
So
allow?
you don't know if you're directly representing the owner
I'm
or
directly representing the owner,
The owner
of the Springett's Manor Apartments?
yes.
Per the tax record, the owner of Springett's Manor Apartments is Springett's Manor LP. Do you have anything in writing with you tonight from the owner of Springett's Manor Apartments authorizing you to represent them?
I'm an officer of the company.
Board, it's up to your vote whether you want to allow this individual to have standing for this evening. I will remind you again, it's at the board's discretion whether to allow standing or not. This does not impact their rights on appeal. They're held to a different standard if they choose to appeal out of this.
I suggest we allow.
Objection.
I have no objection.
I'm fine with that.
Mr. Bishop? Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Objection noted, Attorney McNeil. Anyone else?
My name's Lisa Dumps. I live at 73 Mount Zion Road, literally 3 doors down from the proposed Mount Zion Commons.
I'm sorry, what was the address again?
73 Mount Zion. 73 Mount Zion.
Right. It also helps for our court reporter as
Okay.
well. She needs to hear exactly
My
what.
deed on my house is still in my my name. I just got married recently, so I don't know if you need that.
What is your,
The name of my deed is Lisa Shahid, but my married name now is Lisa Dumps, like garbage. Shahid.
any objections? No objection. Board?
No.
No objection.
Carol Thibodeau. I live at 72 Eisenhower.
Any objections to? No objections, board?
No objection.
No objection.
Yeah, can you, when you come up, please spell your name so we have it for the official court record. Thank you.
Thibodeau.
Anyone else?
I'm Julie Fry, and I live at 92 Jameson Drive. I will be directly affected by this proposal.
F-R-Y?
F-R-E-Y.
E-Y, okay. All right, just wanted to verify. And what was the address again?
92 Jameson Drive, York.
Got it. Any objections? No objection. Any objections, board? Okay.
No objection.
Ruthie McConnell, McConnell. I live at 58 Eisenhower Drive.
Okay. Any objections? No objection. Okay. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is David Lynch. I own the house at 42 Mount Zion Road. My name is spelled Lynch. It's directly across the street from the proposed development.
Okay. Any objections? No objection.
No.
Okay.
Priscilla Melhorn, 7 Bloomingdale Court. Priscilla Melhorn,
How do you spell that last name, please?
Melhorn.
Okay, thank you. And 7 Bloomingdale Court is in the vicinity?
I think it's apartment.
It's, okay, all right, just wanted to verify that. Thank you. Any objections? No objection. Board? Okay.
None.
Lisa Garlick, Garlick. I married into that name. 58 Mount Zion Road.
Okay. Any objections? No objection. Okay.
Jonathan Stayer, Stayer. I live at 98 Eisenhower Drive, which is directly behind the proposed development.
Any objections? No objection. Okay. Board? Okay.
Nope.
William Walker, Walker. I live in 18 Mount Zion Road, right across the street from the proposed project.
Okay. Any objections? No objection. Board?
No objection.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. For all those who are testifying tonight and all those who have asserted standing, if I could please have you rise, raise your right hand, please.
For clarity, would you like my witnesses?
Yes, yes, please.
I do have one witness that's on Zoom who will need to be sworn in.
Okay.
Do we?
Yep.
Okay.
Anybody giving testimony tonight? Raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. And online, is his microphone on or hers? I don't know who's. Chris Riggle?
Higher.
3 more.
Up.
Chris Regal.
R-I-G-G-L-E?
Up.
1 down. There you go.
I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Mr. Riggle, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. Okay. All right, so everybody's sworn in. Ms. McNeil, if you're ready to begin. Or actually, sorry, one thing. Mr. Heilman, if I could please have you read into record the application and any letters that have come from our township engineer, and then also the series of events that provided notice for this hearing.
Yes, sir. We received the application for this project on November 17th, 2023. The Planning Commission actually saw this project at their January meeting, their January 18th meeting, rather than their December 21st meeting of 2023. The applicant had asked it to be delayed until the January meeting, so I just wanted to make that clear in regards to the 30 days time frame that generally occurs with the submission of an application. As far as the materials, the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commissioners got everything that was provided to us by the applicant for both the ultimately the Planning Commission meeting that was held in January. They received it prior to, just to make the board aware and the audience aware that everything that was provided by the applicant with the application was provided to our Planning Commissioners and ultimately the Board of Supervisors. There was a notice for this hearing this evening. I will say that there was a original hearing scheduled for February 8th that got canceled. It was publicized one of the times before it got canceled to this evening, and the new advertisement with the York newspapers occurred on, bear with me one second here, on February 14th and February 21st. So it was publicized twice. February 14th and February 21st in the York newspapers.
Okay. Were there any comment letters that were provided?
Yes, there were. There was a comment letter provided through the Planning Commission entitled the PC Conditional Use Case Summary. There was also a letter provided by First Capital Engineering to the Planning Commission. That letter is dated January 12th, and that again went to the January 18th Planning Commission meeting. Okay. There was a letter prepared for this evening's meeting by myself for the Board of Supervisors case summary. And then there was also a letter prepared by First Capital Engineering dated February 21st of 2024 to the Board of Supervisors for this meeting as well.
Okay. Attorney McNeil, is that?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Helm.
Thank you.
Good evening. Stacy McNeil, Barley Snyder, representing the applicant this evening. A few preliminary matters for the board before I call my first witness. Just for clarification, we will be referencing this evening some of the application materials previously provided to the township, including design guidelines application booklet provided on January 18th, 2024, a PennDOT scoping application, a letter from TPD dated, I believe it's December 23rd, 2023, as well as some updated exhibits, which I have. I will provide copies, hard copies to the board. I do have some additional hard copies, but we will also have these on the screen. And after I hand them out, I will just generally explain what the exhibits are and get those marked. To just help ease our process here, hopefully a little bit.
Thank you.
Indicated, I have a handful of extras if anyone wants hard copies, but we will have it on the screen. In this exhibit packet, we have applicants exhibits 1.1 through 1.13, which are tax maps of the subject properties. And our witnesses will, of course, go into more detail and explain these exhibits. Applicant's Exhibit 2 is a 2-page document showing existing photographs of the property along with some future renderings. Applicant's Exhibit 3 is an updated color site rendering. Applicant's Exhibit 4 is an updated gas line easement exhibit. Applicant's Exhibit 5 is an alternate updated gas line easement exhibit. Applicant's Exhibit 6 is an updated plaza plan. Applicant's Exhibit 7 is an updated site plan, and applicant's Exhibit 8 is an updated traffic circulation plan. The modifications that have been made since the last submission were made, number one, just to address the minor outstanding comments that existed in the First Capital Engineering's most recent submission letter or response letter, and also to address ongoing conversations with Columbia Gas regarding their easement and what they are looking to see, where they want their easement located and how that impacts the design of the project. Two additional matters related to the modifications. First, as was mentioned at the Planning Commission meeting in January, the modification request for the flagpole height has been withdrawn. So the proposed flagpole in the public plaza will meet the ordinance requirements for flagpole height. We are also going to be asking the board to consider a potential modification this evening from section 325-203 related to the streetscape along Mount Zion Road to allow the street trees and pedestrian lighting to be on the interior side of the sidewalk as opposed to being between the sidewalk and the street for purposes of coordination with the gas pipeline. And we'll have some more explanation as to that with Mr. McKenna. So with that modification, the modifications that are being requested this evening are related to maximum building setback along East Market Street, maximum building setback along Mount Zion Road, gas canopy and fueling stations in the front yard, the public entrances for apartment buildings 5 and 7 not being facing the street. The translucency calculation on Building 2's East Market Street frontage, allowing parking in the front yard, modification of the parking lot interior landscaping, width of the access drives, traffic impact study, and this potential minor modification of the streetscape for Mount Zion Road. And again, as we go through our testimony, we'll explain in greater detail what those specific modifications are that are being requested. As I know the board is aware, we're here this evening on a conditional use application for the town center overlay, which is a design guideline that is in place in certain areas of the ordinance and really governs primarily how developments in those areas are designed and laid out. This is an underlying zoning of mixed use, and all of the uses, of course, that we are proposing as part of this application are permitted uses in this mixed use zoning district. With that, I'm going to call Mr. McKenna up as my first witness. And
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for this opportunity this evening. We've obviously been in front of the board and
Go ahead and lift the this up. Don't want you.
it's nice to be back here in front of the board to talk about the latest and greatest plan and how it's evolved. Of course, we're all faced with a unique opportunity in that these 13 parcels fragmented in that these parcels are owned by multiple different property owners. When we started off with the project, of course, we were able to assemble some key parcels. Others were left out of the development. As the project has progressed and conversations continued with those other property owners, we were successful in assembling all the properties that reside within this specific town center corridor. And with that,
And if I could just back up for a second, Mr. McKenna, and it's going to be a challenge for us.
Sorry about
No,
that.
it's okay. No, you're fine.
I'll move it around.
Okay. Before, we're going to talk in detail about the properties that make up the subject property. But before we get to that, just for the record, can you give a little bit more background about what you do, your experience with commercial development, and what your history has been with commercial development leading you up to this project?
Sure. I'm with Madison Development Group. I'm the Director of Development. I've been developing commercial properties of this nature, size, and caliber for over 26 years. I've been in the real estate business for 32 years. And this property is very similar to two developments that we facilitated in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, and also in Gloucester County, Gloucester County, New Jersey.
So now turning to the subject properties in particular, showing you what we've marked as applicant's exhibit. There we go. Oh. 1.1. And can you identify this property, where it's located?
Yes, this property is at the very intersection of Mount Zion Road and East Market Street. It is currently improved with a shed.
And who is the owner of this property?
An affiliate of Mount Zion Commons, Madison Harrisburg, is the current owner of this property.
And moving east along East Market Street to applicant's exhibit 1.2, can you identify this property?
Yes, this is the former Modern Air Motel, and it consists of roughly 0.9 acres, a little less than an acre.
And what can you tell me a little bit about the existing condition of this property?
Well, the property is over 60 years old. It has fallen in disrepair. Many of the units are very antiquated. Some of the plumbing is actually, we had to shut off the plumbing. It was leaking in several locations. And the property is in general disrepair.
So I'm showing you what we've marked as applicant's exhibit 2, and can you tell me where these photographs came from?
Yes, these are photographs that we took, and they show 4 views of this general intersection, the northeast corner of Mount Zion and East Market Street. The first, where you have noted, that is the motel and the motel rooms. There's a total of 21 motel rooms in the 2 structures that are currently standing. This is a photo of a district gas, Columbia Gas building. It's where the valves are. They monitor the pressure of the gas that's flowing from the street into this district station. This is a photo of the former pool at the Modern Air Motel that was filled in many years ago with cement. This is a structure just to the right on East Market Street of the motel. It's the address 3319 East Market Street. It's an older structure that's in disrepair.
So going back to applicant's exhibit 1.2, I think you mentioned this, but to clarify, who's the owner of this property?
That is our company, our affiliate, which is Madison Harrisburg, LLC.
Now, are you aware that there are certain people in the community who would consider this property to have some historic significance.
Yes, that has been brought to our attention.
And have you been contacted by anyone about that?
Yes, we were contacted by the Lincoln Highway Association shortly after acquiring it in July of 2023, and we were asked to preserve certain elements of it and donate it. We did represent to the association that we'd be happy to donate certain parts of the motel, notably the historic sign that resides there. Now, we did do an in-depth search of all the properties. None are on the national or local registry.
So continuing further east on Market Street, this is the parcel I think that you just showed a photograph of, the 3319 East Market Street. And is this property under contract?
Yes, we have that under contract.
And moving on to applicants 1.4, this is the next property further east on East Market Street. Is this also under contract?
Yes, this is 3321 East Market Street, and we also have that under contract to purchase.
And this is zoned mixed use.
All of the properties that reside here that we've assembled are zoned mixed use.
Moving on to applicants exhibit 1.5, what can you tell me about this property?
This property has an address of 3323 East Market Street. The property currently has two structures on it, an older home that's in severe need of repairs, and the second structure is an old shed.
And who's the owner of this property?
An affiliate of ours, which is Mount Zion Commons.
And moving to applicants 1.6, which is further to the east, what can you tell me about this property?
This property is improved with an older home and also a shed, or more of a kind of a mini barn. This property is in need of a new roof, new siding, plumbing, and various other requirements.
Do you know how this property is currently being used?
Yes, it's a, the owner is a contractor. He utilizes the ground floor for his offices and part of the second floor. And there's also an apartment on the second and third floor.
And is this property under contract to Mount Zion Commons?
Yes, Mount Zion Commons has this under contract.
Now, applicants exhibits 1.5 and 1.6 were not necessarily part of the initial Mount Zion Commons project when you first appeared in front of the township almost 2 years ago. Is that right?
That's correct. We initially had an easement for right-of-way that we have to dedicate additional right-of-way to PennDOT in order to provide for safe means of ingress as you're traveling westbound on East Market Street to enter the site. But most recently, we were able to get a contract to purchase this property, which is the last property in the assemblage.
And do you believe it was important to have all of these properties, including the others that we'll be reviewing here in a moment, as part of this overall project?
Yes, for purposes of continuity and integration, and of course, in keeping with the spirit of the town center overlay design requirements, we are required to integrate to every property that resides within the town center corridor.
So now I'm going to move from the corner and start moving north on Mount Zion Road. This applicant's exhibit 1.7, is this the district gas building that we saw a photograph of earlier?
Yes, that is correct.
So do you have an agreement that would allow you to acquire this property?
Yes, we've reached an agreement to acquire this property to integrate in the development.
And what does that entail in order to try to integrate a property like this with an existing district gas building into a development like this?
Well, it's a major undertaking at a tremendous expense. There is a gas line that runs into this district building, exits the rear, and that goes along what was the former tree line there, going north, parallel to Mount Zion Road. So you have a high-pressure main, 12-inch main, that's only three feet below the surface there. So it's a major endeavor. Redeveloping these parcels without the relocation of that would be rather difficult.
And is it fair to say that can only be done at a very significant expense?
Yes, it would be significant.
And I think you alluded to the fact that the line itself would need to be relocated for any sort of development on the site due to its depth. Are there other reasons why that line should be replaced?
The line is antiquated. It's at the end of its useful life. It's definitely, I would say, I was told that the steel pipe of that nature and the age between 60 and 70 years, it needs to be replaced.
So now I'm going to show you what we've marked as applicants exhibits 1.8 through 1.13.
Oh, I'm sorry, if I can interject.
Yeah.
The age of that pipe is over 60 years old.
1.8 through 113, which are additional properties further north along Mount Zion Commons Road. And if I could ask you, first of all, are all of those properties under contract to Mount Zion Commons?
Yes.
And have you had an opportunity to inspect all of these properties at one point in time?
Most of the structures we have, there are a few that tenants have recently vacated. There was one remaining tenant in 59 Mount Zion Road, so we have not been given an opportunity to inspect those.
So all of those structures either at the time you went under the contract or now, with the exception of one, are vacant?
There are currently two properties in all of the properties that are currently occupied. The other multiple properties are vacant.
And these parcels along Mount Zion Commons Road, it appears that at one point in time they were built as single-family detached structures. Do you know if that's how they were being used when you put them under contract?
Yes, they're being utilized as apartments.
Were some of them multiple units in one dwelling?
Yes, in some cases 3 and possibly 4, but definitely 3 units in several of the structures.
So with all of these parcels combined, what is the total acreage of the subject site?
Roughly 11.9 acres.
And how would you describe the neighborhood of this general neighborhood?
Well, the neighborhood consists of non-conforming homes on the west side of Mount Zion Road. Those properties are zoned neighborhood commercial. Beyond that, across the street, of course, we have commercial tenants. There's a freestanding Rite Aid. There is a Jiffy Lube and other commercial tenants.
Would it be fair to say that maybe to the south of this site and directly adjacent, to the south of the site, first of all, is residential?
Well, immediately south is the Rite Aid. You mean beyond that?
Correct.
Okay, beyond that, of course, then it transitions into residential.
So along East Market Street itself, it is commercial, and then south of that is a residential neighborhood.
Yes.
And is it fair to say that directly to the north and east of the site is multifamily?
Yes, it's multifamily.
And beyond that multifamily is commercial industrial property?
Yes, intensive uses in the industrial sector.
And as we are seeing here on this exhibit that was included in design guidelines, then really all of this area to the north, west, and east is intensive industrial commercial development.
Yes.
I'm going to go back to what we've marked as applicant's exhibit 4, if I may. And I know it's not going to show up super well on here, but we'll do the best we can. This is the revised Columbia Gas easement exhibit. And first of all, can you just tell the board a little bit of what your experience has been thus far in working with Columbia Gas on this project?
Columbia Gas, we reached out to over a year ago, and the whole project team, the design team, has been working very closely with us to come up with a design that integrates with their current system. They most recent, over the last 2 weeks, installed a new, I believe, a 6-inch line along Mount Zion Road, and so this is the next line to be tackled, so to speak.
Okay, so if you use this top button here, it'll give you a magnifier on there. Do you want to show the board generally the proposed gas line and easement? Oh,
I'm sorry,
no.
was that, fix it. It's the top button. Sorry,
Uh-oh.
my bad.
Yeah, just press it.
The top.
Press stop and hold, yep.
All right, so you can see here, currently the gas line runs across the street over to this corner in the grass area, and then it goes into the district building, which is, current district building's right about here, and then it's about 160 feet in, and then it goes all the way up, currently, and it goes up, and it actually goes right alongside the Spring Etzbury apartments. That's the 12-inch gas main there. We're working with Columbia Gas to instead bring it back out to the right-of-way, or just inside the new right-of-way, in a safer, more accessible location. And in case of emergencies, they can get to it. And this would be the line here, as you can see, the red line, go just inside that right-of-way, up and over to that point.
And does that new location of the line, of course, require an associated easement with it?
Yes, they have a current easement, so we're working on a new easement. They do require a relatively large easement area. It's 50 foot.
And then moving, and we may have been looking at applicant's exhibit 5, but applicant's exhibit 5, which is the alternate exhibit, is very similar to applicant's exhibit 4. Can you just generally describe what the minor modification is between the original exhibit and the alternate?
Yes, it's, Exhibit 4 was the original, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so it's basically two alternatives for us. Columbia Gas requires a relatively flat plane, of course, to access the gas line in case of emergency. So we want to create that area, basically a plateau, and utilize the sidewalk and the area going towards Mount Zion Road as that flat area, where it would only be grass, so that in case of emergency, they have a backhoe out there now they were working on the current line. It's about 8 foot wide. So we want to create an area that's roughly 10 foot wide. But to answer your question, Stacy, we moved it we moved the line west from Exhibit 4 to Exhibit 5 by about 8 or 9 feet, because the grades there would make it challenging for them to access it, and we are going to have a small retaining wall in there. So we want to give them access where they could literally just jump over the sidewalk in case of emergency and access that entire area.
And with part of that proposed modification, which is still under review by Columbia Gas on applicant's Exhibit 5, would that shift the gas line so it would be between the proposed sidewalk and the cartway?
Yes.
And with the gas main in that location, would it mean that any trees or streetlights would have to be on the other side of the sidewalk?
Yes, Columbia Gas requires in most cases that those light fixtures, any electrical, obviously, and other structures be at least 8 to 10 feet away.
So I've turned to now what we have marked as applicant's Exhibit 3, which is the updated color rendering of the project. And can you just generally describe for the board the project? And I think you can use that magnifier.
Yes, we'll start with the, let's see how I'm doing here. We'll start with the right here near the intersection. This consists of 2 structures. The first is a building that's roughly 5,200 square feet to contain a First Watch restaurant, which does brunch and breakfast. It will also have a outdoor patio area. And then we have a space next to that that's roughly 1,300 square feet. We designed this to have a patio to be shared between this unit and the end cap there. So the next building that's freestanding is a Starbucks, 2,400 square foot Starbucks with a drive-through. I'm going to come back here to the east. Building number 1 is a freestanding Wawa with a canopy. The Wawa will be roughly 5,300 square feet. Continuing to the east, sorry. We have an apartment building, a 4-story apartment building. And over here is another 4-story apartment building. Up here on the northwest corner of the site is the 3rd apartment building. We're proposing in those 3 structures a total of 170 units. And lastly, this freestanding building is intended to be a restaurant, also with a double drive-through.
And do you have a public plaza as well as another kind of gathering space internal to the site that is proposed on this drawing? And if you could point those out.
Yes, we have 2 areas. I'm sorry, Stacy, I did it again.
I think if you just press the top button, he'll get us back there. Try again.
Okay.
There you go.
The main public plaza that we've created is, okay, I'm getting there. All right. Oh, it's very hard to see that, but I wonder, is there a way to zoom in?
No, we do have we have a plaza exhibit.
That's right,
we'll
we
go
have
to.
an exhibit. So over here is the, a 3,000 square foot public plaza. It will have decorative pavers, planters, benches, lighting, and a flagpole. There will also be a wall that's going to be made from stone that is being relocated from a right-of-way. And this area is the stone currently. So there is, there's an impediment to the widening of this road. It's a stone wall. It's no more than 18 inches high. The township was concerned about this current shoulder here and the access to our site. It's a very dangerous condition now, so we worked with the township and PennDOT and are proposing to relocate the stone there into the public plaza and put a dedication plaque to the Bloomingdale, the old Bloomingdale estate that was once in this location.
And do you also have kind of a space, a community space that will be available to the tenants of the multifamily structures?
Yes, the community space is, I think it may have run out of battery.
Sure. Yep. Here. Here. Do you want me to take the mic? John.
There's an area that's designated for a community center in front of the larger apartment complex. So that's an area that's roughly about 4,000 square feet. So we envision either an outdoor area or a community center, and the community center would be obviously fitness. Would be an area for the residents to congregate and work on Wi-Fi and offer a setting for community events within the residential complexes.
Why don't we stay over here and we'll just use the mic over here. Okay. Do you, are you proposing any type of signage for the shopping center?
Yes, we have 2 monument signs proposed. The first one is here on Mount Zion Road at the main entrance. That sign would be roughly 18 foot in height. The second monument sign would be at the main entrance of East Market Street.
And is this a rendering of that sign, proposed sign that was included in the January guideline submission?
Yes.
Now I'm showing you what we've marked as Applicant's Exhibit 6, which is a slightly modified public plaza plan. And for the board, the modifications added here weren't any of the design. It was just adding some dimensions that were requested by the township staff. You talked about this plaza a little bit generally, but now that you have this here in front of you, do you want to kind of just, again, point out what some of those features are?
Yes, so I referred to the pavers and decorative pavers. So you see that here in the center. That's the large conglomerate area. We have this raised wall, which will be at least 4 foot in height. And this is where the stone that's being relocated from East Market Street will be employed in this area. And the historic plaque noting the notability of that Bloomingdale estate. We also have here 3 tree wells within that area to provide some shade, and then raised planters built in with benches. And these raised planters will have perennials and other flowers and plants within them. And then we're going to have a bike rack, we envision, for a lot of the employees of some of these users, whether it be the restaurant or the retail uses. This would provide a unique area for them to, whether they're riding a scooter or a bike, to lock up here, a safe, visible area. It's also in close proximity to the Wawa, so that we envision employees will come here to take breaks, as well as patrons of their establishment that will be coming. There are going to be EV charging stations here, and this provides an area in good weather to congregate and take a break.
And do you believe that the location of this plaza is consistent with the ordinance requirements, that it have visibility to the street and provide really a place where hopefully it attracts people from the street, pedestrians who are walking, not just people who are internal to the site?
Yes, we believe this location is ideal in that it will be regularly used not only by patrons and employees of the development, but sometimes passersby. We did note a little further down on East Market Street in front of the residential building, there is noted on the Rabbit Transit bus stop there, so we envision keeping that or working with them to do whatever signage they'd like in that deceleration lane. So again, this all integrates well, I think, with being out, meeting the spirit of the town center ordinance, and that it be integrated with the neighboring sidewalks.
And can you, I know they don't show on the public plaza plan, but maybe you can note on here, I know they're small, the lighting that is adjacent to the public plaza and will provide the lighting for the public plaza. Yeah.
So the lighting fixtures are throughout, of course. There's street lighting up and down, decorative street lighting up and down East Market Street and Mount Zion Road, and we'll utilize those same light fixtures for continuity along both roads within the plaza. And I think we note in or surrounding that at least 5 of those decorative light fixtures.
So I'd like to talk right now and really focus on the modifications that you're requesting here. So the first one is the maximum setback along East Market Street. Can you, and Building 7, which is the multifamily building, meets those requirements, but technically the Wawa and the First Watch, which I think is Building 2, do not meet those requirements. Can you explain why you felt it was best to design this in the manner that it's designed?
Yeah. You're talking about the modification that relates to screening or the translucent materials?
No, I'm talking about the modification to set the buildings further away from the street than the maximum setback.
Yes, in any development, particularly retail, circulation is key. Parking, visibility, safety. This has been designed as such to be a focal point at the corner for those sitting at the intersection or driving through the intersection and vehicularly. You're going to have a very decorative building, which we can show shortly as we go through the next slides, that are really going to be vibrant at this corner. In particular, there's going to be an outdoor dining area here, the translucent glass. But we set this building really as close to the road as we could without compromising access and circulation, whether that be for fire trucks or delivery trucks, and for that matter, for circulation for the drive-through facilities. We do have a hardship along Mount Zion Road with setbacks because of the gas line. The gas line requires a 50-foot easement, and you can't build anything, you can't build any structures within those areas. But the access, the visibility, and the parking for purposes operationally what these users need is adequate.
And you were mentioning before about there is a modification for the East Market Street end of Building 2 from the transparent, translucent requirements. Can you explain that a little bit further?
Yes, technically, we do meet the requirement for the translucent in that the side of that First Watch restaurant will have at least 25% glass. However, the patio, in order to create some privacy and tranquility in there, they have these decorative walls they put in there. It has some slats in it so you can technically see through it, but it would not meet the spirit of the 25%.
We also have a modification for the front entrances on Buildings 5 and Building 7. Can you explain that?
Yes, for purposes of the orientation of the buildings and the general layout, having an entrance on the side of this building furthest away from parking would be very difficult to operate. It would be difficult on the tenants, whether it be inclement weather or not. It's just not practical. So for that reason, this structure has, this apartment building 5 has an entrance that's facing technically towards East Market Street, and the same goes for building 7. It's actually, the entrance is facing west.
We also have a modification request for the gas canopy and fueling stations in the front yard. Do you want to just explain that?
I've been in a lot of places in this country, and I'm not quite sure I've seen a location of a convenience gas that had the canopies in the rear. This is for, this meets their prototypical requirement, but furthermore, the tranquility and such for the residents and the community within here, having that activity in the rear would I think be counterproductive of what we're trying to create.
And I think you alluded to the kind of the parking in the front yard that's here, but if you could speak to that as well as to the request for the modification in the parking lot interior landscaping. And
Yeah, of course, this parking lot is, I think we have roughly 490 spaces. I think our required number of spaces is 400. So we exceed that. And what's unique is the way that we've integrated the site and connected the site, the interconnectivity. We have crosswalks throughout the development connecting all of the uses. So if there is overflow or in the need for additional parking for any one of these uses, they can park in each other's respective lots, albeit we think we have adequate parking for each independent use, but it does provide an opportunity for any peak activities. But the peak time for most of these tenancies along here is different than the peak time for the apartments. The apartment peak time is, 8 to 10 o'clock at night.
And I think Mr. Riggle's going to testify to this in more detail. So you're requesting a modification to basically relocate some of the required interior parking lot landscaping. You're not removing or reducing any of it, just relocating it to help increase the efficiencies of the parking internal to the site.
Yes, we've faced this requirement and other projects, and it's to place those landscape islands so regularly throughout, it takes up a lot of parking, but we're certainly not looking to limit the number of plantings. We're just planting them in other areas, and that is the modification that we're requesting.
And you understand there's two more kind of technical modifications that we have other witnesses which will testify to, which is the maximum access drive width, as well as the filing and providing the full, complete traffic impact study.
Yes, we're requesting for that to be provided at a later date.
So let me just ask you some general questions about all of the modifications that you've requested. Do you believe that the modifications have been requested as it relates to this particular project serve the intended purposes and goals of the town center?
We do.
And do you believe the modifications will not result in an adverse impact to adjoining properties or future inhabitants?
We do not.
And do you believe that these modifications do not result in an increase in development densities?
They do not.
And do the modifications not result in a decrease in public plaza space?
They do not.
And is the modification requested the minimum amount of relief that you believe is necessary to ensure compliance with the town center overlay?
I'm sorry, repeat that?
Is this the minimum amount of relief that you believe is necessary for the project?
Yes.
And let me go back for 1 second, because I don't think I asked you this. Going back to the public plaza for a second, you provided with your application a proposed agreement with the township that you would enter into if the project eventually gets to a land development plan approval, that would allow the public to use that designated public plaza space while it remains on private property. Are you in agreement with that document?
Yes. Okay, so this is an image perspective that the warehouse, our architect, produced. And it took some time, but we're real happy with the final rendering here. And so what you see here is a lot of translucent glass at the storefronts. And above that, we employ a few different materials, hardy plank, hardy board, decorative stone. And then we have variations of parapet heights and breaks within the parapet throughout, which meets the requirement of this town center design guidelines. And so what you see here is, again, the first watch at the corner here. This is the general screening that we referred to for their patio area, and then the other user and Starbucks at the far left there. And of course, they will have a drive-through on the north side of that building. This is a elevation of the two apartment buildings. The one on the right is the building that is roughly 70 units, and that is on the eastern property line. I will note that the ordinance states that there's a 0 setback line. That structure actually could be up along the property line, but we've provided a setback with the parking of at least 35 feet. This is the rendering of the Wawa and Wawa canopy. They have, first in class as it relates to the canopy and the canopy designs. They also employ El Dorado stone on the columns as well as on the building. This is an image looking northbound from East Market Street of the public plaza. As you can see, the raised planters with the flowers, and I'm not sure if that flagpole represents the height or not, but that flagpole would be roughly 5 foot, no more than 5 foot above the tallest building in accordance with the ordinance. And you can see the the decorative stone wall with the plaque, and then, of course, the other seating area and benches on the very right side there. This will also have decorative trash enclosures, other benches that will be flanking this.
Is there anything else you want to share with the board before we move on to the experts?
Not at this time.
I have no further questions for Mr. McKenna. As alluded to, we do have 3 further witnesses this evening. Mr. Riggle from Colliers Engineering, Mr. Craig Campbell from Warehouse, and Mr. Eric Mounts from TPD.
You need a break? Okay. Does the board have any for this particular?
Not at this time, for me.
I actually do.
You do? Okay.
Yes. Question about the public plaza that is depicted here, and I was looking at it in the drawings. Is there not a safety concern of locating it so close to 2 busy roads such as Mount Zion Road and Market Street? Having people sitting there in a public plaza that close to the intersection?
Yeah, we can pull up the other plan and show you. It's quite a distance away from the actual right-of-way, and I think there's a slight grade there as well.
And to clarify, in that location, the Market Street streetscape requires, is it a 10-foot sidewalk plus a significant separation distance?
It's actually larger than that. The sidewalk alone is 12 foot in width, just to give you a sense of the distance. So let's flip back over to that. And we can always.
Do you want this one here?
Yeah. Let's see.
I can't get this to work.
Let's see here. Where's your booklet?
Oh, it's right here.
Tell you roughly what that is. So it looks to be approximately at least 18 foot away from what's going to be the curb line, probably closer to 20 feet where that curb line's going to be. So it's a sizable distance, and there is going to be a slight upgrade to that area. We thought it was important to have that open because whether nearby residents are biking, taking a scooter, or whatever means of transportation or walking, it's more inviting to have that opened up and to be accessible. Could we extend the wall further and make it a smaller opening? We could certainly look at that if the board felt that there was any issue there, any safety issue. I think it's sizable. It's quite a distance away from the actual curb. But we could look at extending a wall there and making it a smaller opening.
I think you said you've developed numerous sites around. Is there a comparable plaza you've put in somewhere else similar to the road design here where this is located?
We've done another project that had we had talked about that in front of the Planning Commission, where it was more centrally located within development. The problem with that, it's never utilized. It's just so far away from patrons and users, and it's just not used. So having it in closer proximity to building 2 and 3, and certainly right immediately adjacent to the Wawa, we think it's actually going to be used, as well as it does meet the spirit of the ordinance. The ordinance requires it be integrated with the sidewalk and public sidewalk. So we think it's in the right location, and will serve the community and the tenants and patrons. But if there's any issue with you know, safety, vernacular, we could put bollards in there as well. We could put bollards in there or close part of it. But I do think it's a significant distance away from any traffic.
Thank you.
Mr. McKenna, you had indicated you've done several developments. Could you tell us if you've done any market feasibility studies for the apartments or the retail shops here for this site?
Yeah, for the feasibility for the apartments, we've just reached out to numerous other apartment companies and managers. The apartment complexes, the apartment portion of the development is going to be another group, and they have done their feasibility studies, and you know, they're for luxury or modern size or relatively modern apartments. There tends to be a wait list and very limited availability. So there is a lot of demand from multiple multifamily developers at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, my name again is Marta Peck. I live at 90 Jameson Drive. And I wanted to go through these sheets. I had a number of questions. First of all, I was just intrigued as an informational item in looking at this corner property, assessed land value of $2,980, assessed land value of $2,980, assessed building value of $720 for a total of $3,700, for which it was purchased for $875,000. And just as a point of information, would someone explain that to me?
This is just a public tax record. I don't think there is any explanation to be offered.
Okay. Moving on to the issue of historic buildings, you cited the historic modern era motel, which has some history involved in it. I noted you did not note the property on Exhibit 1-6, which includes the Bloomingdale building, which is the building there that is eligible for registration on the National Register of Historic Places. And it was originally built no later than 1887. There's a very long history of the building. And the building next to it, going farther west, is the Fry Home, which was owned by, that is another building of historical significance, although not eligible for National Register of Historic Places. And I just wanted to note that that was not included in your discussion.
May I just, as a point of order, ask
Yes.
if we're going to be doing testimony and questions at this time, or just questions?
This
No,
is strictly questions.
This is strictly questions. No, my comments will come later.
Okay, so
Okay.
can you please come to the question, please?
Okay. So the question is, to the gentleman, what did you note about the Bloomingdale building? In terms of, I noted, you didn't note its historic significance, but you cited the modern motel, which has far less.
Yes, thank you for that question. We have been told that it's regarded as having historical significance. We are prepared to hire either an archaeologist or other representative to document its past and properly recognize it in the local registry.
And going to exhibit number 3, which is this rendering. I had a number of questions regarding it. You noted that the development density would not increase in the area. And I wanted to ask, how was that calculated? Because living in Springus Apartments, we have 300 apartments on 30 acres, which is 10 units per acre. This, I'm willing to say on 12 acres here that, say, 7 of it would be apartments, and they would accommodate 170 units, which is 24 per acre. So am I not calculating this correctly?
You're misunderstanding the question. The question that was asked was whether the modifications impact on the development density on this particular site, to which the response was no. It's not related to existing density on other properties.
Okay. I'm probably dense because that isn't totally clear to me. How? I also note that in terms of the monument sign, I read the ordinance, and signs at the opening of commercial areas are a maximum 6 feet unless this is a shopping center. The ordinance does not define the term shopping center. I'm curious, what makes a Wawa, a variety of restaurants, and an apartment buildings a shopping center that would allow an 18-foot sign?
So if I could, this is a legal interpretation of the ordinance, and I believe it's consistent with prior interpretations of this term in Springus Bay Township as well as other adjacent municipalities. When you have multiple retail restaurant uses on a site, that they are considered a shopping center.
Now, there's been a lot of discussion regarding the plaza and how it's accessible via sidewalk. And I'd appreciate it if you could actually show me how you can access this via sidewalk.
I could certainly have Mr. McKenna go up and do that, but it's adjacent to the sidewalk.
No, I'm asking to show me exactly, because what I'm seeing here is there is no way to get to it via the sidewalk.
Mr. McKenna, can you please go up and point out the adjacent sidewalk?
So I do wish there was an opportunity to zoom this in so people could see it, but the sidewalk on East Market Street is instead of a normal 5-foot sidewalk, it's going to be 12 foot. And that's entirely along here. It's going to be flanked with shrubs and decorative lights, and every 60 feet, I think we are required to put in a decorative light. And then that will be all very well lit. It's going to connect all the way up to Eisenhower. So now, as you walk down East Market Street with the trees and the build-up wall, you take your life in your hands. Every time I walk down there, you got to run and you got to dart in. It's very unsafe conditions. Anyway, so this sidewalk here, I'm sorry, your first name again is? Marta. Marta, this sidewalk here is 12 foot all the way up here, and it actually touches the public plaza.
I understand that. What I want to know is the sidewalk starts over at the I'm sorry. The sidewalk begins over at the boundary of Eisenhower. That's okay. This microphone's for you. At Eisenhower Drive, and you see the sidewalk comes down by that first apartment building, and then you come to the entrance off Market Street. Now, you cannot, no pedestrian in their right mind is going to cross over that road, that 2 lanes where people are coming in off Market Street and going back out onto Market Street. And if you look at the diagram, you can see that there are pedestrian crossings that if you walk in front of Building 7, farther down, Building 7 to the right, if you walk down the front of that, then there's a pedestrian crosswalk, and that crosswalk comes and it crosses down in front of the Wawa, and then the Wawa is the only pedestrian crosswalk over to the plaza. If you're coming down from the north, there is sidewalk, but again, the sidewalk runs into the same problem in that there's an entrance into the complex that's 2 lanes wide with traffic coming in and going out. the pedestrian, then where's the pedestrian walkway? And I keep looking at the diagrams. And
If I could, it might be helpful here if the speaker could pause at the question and allow
Okay.
for a response before continuing on with further exposition to allow an answer to the question.
Okay.
Yes. So, yes, there is the 12-foot sidewalk all along East Market Street. There is the other sidewalk along Mount Zion Road, which I think is required to be 8 foot in width. They all have multiple locations where you can go from the sidewalk into the property. So, for instance, up here, Marta, this part here, you can see this. There is a sidewalk there which connects to this use,
Right.
and there's a crosswalk in a safe area. Okay, and then down here near the intersection, wherever you're coming from, if you're at Rite Aid and you crossed, or on this other side of the street, you have a sidewalk leading from what's currently that island there, if you so choose to cross in that location. But it is there for pedestrians. So it is all interconnected, and then once you get into the site, everything is interconnected. You can see here from the Wawa back to the apartment complex. From this apartment complex over to this use, that's what all the black lines are there. Those are crosswalks.
Yes, I understand that those are crosswalks. I'll say this for my testimony later. I just frankly find this to be very convoluted and very difficult.
I would ask that we stick to questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
This,
Fine.
and ma'am, for your
Yes.
benefit and anybody else, this is the question and answer time, not,
Right.
please don't come up and provide testimony at this time. You will have an opportunity to provide testimony.
Okay.
Yeah, bend it.
And I want to clarify again, how high is the flagpole going to be?
It's going to be limited to no more than 5 foot above the tallest building.
So that'll be 60 feet high.
Was that a question or was that a statement?
Yeah, that's a question.
Okay.
It will be, I don't believe that I'd have to look at the elevations. I'm not sure that there are precisely 55 feet, but yes, 5 feet higher than the tallest building on site.
Okay, thank you very much.
Board, I have a request for a recess for breaks. We'll just call it that.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yes,
Okay, so we'll take a 5-minute.
5 minutes.
Does that work? Okay, thank you. Please, can we have quiet, please? The hearing's resuming. Thank you.
Okay, are we ready to move forward with our next witnesses then at this time?
I believe
Okay, great.
so.
So then I will move forward with Mr. Chris Riggle, who is available on Zoom.
Make any more, excuse me, we misunderstood that. Are we about allowed to make any comments about anything that was said?
If you have standing and you have questions, please.
My name's Lisa Dumps, 73 Mount Zion Road. We have questions about if there's been a traffic study done.
So as was indicated, we have a traffic consultant with us this evening who will be testifying.
And the study has been done.
Our traffic consultant will be testifying, and he will be speaking to traffic impact study and the traffic scoping application.
Okay, so has PennDOT done a study at all?
PennDOT doesn't do a study.
Okay, and I want to know if the study that he's going to talk about included the entranceway that I sit on the corner of Eisenhower Drive.
Miss,
Okay?
we're going to have a traffic study expert testifying, and you can ask as many questions as you want of the
Okay.
traffic engineer, but right now it's pertaining to the presentation that was just done by Mr. McKenna. That's what your question should be focused on.
And my other question is traffic coming down that road. Okay? The window of opportunity to get out of Eisenhower Drive onto Mount Zion is very small window when the traffic lights changes at Market.
I appreciate
Okay,
that.
so I'm
This is a traffic, that's a
Okay.
traffic really. Do you have any specific questions for Mr. McKenna and what he presented?
Yes, and, yeah, forgot that. Your other developments, one Montgomery, Pennsylvania, and one is in, I forget what you said in New Jersey, you corrected it.
I've been involved in developments I've been in real estate development for 26 years and collectively have developed over 1.5 million square feet of retail.
Okay, that's impressive, but you said that the two that you had, Montgomery, Pennsylvania, and the one in New Jersey, were similar to this one in your experience. So my question is, are they similar in that they have the apartment dwellings, 4-story apartments, and gas station, 18-pump gas stations with canopies, and drive-through restaurants? Are they similar to that? And if so, what feedback did you get or opposition did you get to it? And if they are already in use, what consequences have resulted from that mix use? Or aren't they anything like that?
Those projects, from a traffic standpoint, from an access standpoint, operate very efficiently.
But that's not my question. Are they similar in the composition from what's within those shopping centers?
Well, one is in front of multifamily and single-family homes.
And that has a gas station too?
There's not a gas station.
And drive-through restaurants?
Yes. Yes, they have drive-through restaurants, drive-through retail, supermarkets, fast food.
Okay, and I have one other question. You said that moving the pipeline, the gas pipeline, is a very expensive undertaking. Are you footing that bill, or are taxpayers doing it?
We're footing the bill.
The entire, it's going to be multi-million, I'm probably sure.
It's expensive.
Okay, and you're footing the entire thing. It's not going to be any burden on the taxpayers at all?
That's correct.
Okay.
Or gas users, or gas
Yeah, or gas users. Like, will
There-
rates go up because
The
of that?
person with standing is asking the questions. So please, if you have comments and you don't have standing, that will be done during public comment sessions. I appreciate that everybody is sharing an opinion, but we're trying to keep an order to this hearing. Thank you. Anyone else with standing have questions specifically for Mr. McKenna's presentation?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, thank you.
I
If you could come to the mic, repeat your name again, thank you.
I'm Carol Thibodeau. I'm at 72 Eisenhower. I was concerned about the pedestrian walkways, because when I look at sheet, it's 6 of 21, but what was up there before, it looks like there's some walkways that are like cut-throughs, but there's no walkway next to the entranceways for the cars on East Market and Mount Zion. I was wondering if there's any way you can put sidewalks on that, because that's where people will be, if they are walking, will want to go in. They're not going to want to go in by the apartments. If they want to go to the restaurants, they're going to think to go in down that way.
And if I could, and we can have Mr. Riggle or Mr. Mount speak to this, but part of the PennDOT design that will be involved with the access drives will be the pedestrian crosswalks that are required in those areas, including the handicap accessible ramps and things like that. That's part of the PennDOT HOP design.
So there will be sidewalks all the way down the entranceway here?
There's sidewalks.
Because they're not there now.
If
and-
you could
and-
please, ma'am, when
Sorry.
you say here, it's hard to transcribe that,
Well,
and so people
I
know what you're.
can't, I mean, it's broken. and
No, no,
don't know
I
what
understand.
you want me to do. On mine, it's page
Okay.
6 of 21.
So the question is there going to be a sidewalk down the main entrance?
Right.
No. And the reason for that is it's not a safe place to be directing. It's not a safe place to direct. The uses are down here. So you want to have the interconnectivity here. Now, the apartment complex will be connected here, but you don't want to encourage coming down or next to the main entrance drive because there's no need to. You don't have a use right here. The uses are over here, and this is where the interconnectivity is. Here's a connection to these uses from the main sidewalk. Here's a connection, and then here's a connection.
Yeah, they look like just like cut-throughs or breaks in the landscaping, and I don't know if people will know that they're there. You know, they're going to think about the
Well,
driveway entrance.
The size here is you know, if we zoomed in on this, I don't know if we're capable of doing that, but you could see. I mean, these are 5-foot
Okay,
sidewalks.
we got it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a little 1-foot
Okay.
trail. It's a 5-foot sidewalk that connects to here, and then there's a crosswalk to here to this island, and this island has a built-in walkway then to here. So
Is there anything to the FAR building? I think it's building number 5.
5. Well, those users, these tenants rather, you know, we envision them coming this way. You know, we could look at perhaps adding something in this area if they're going to walk northbound. So that's a good comment, suggestion, and then maybe we do a crosswalk here and then interconnect that.
Right, that's my question. Thank you.
And just for the record, we're referring to App Exhibit 3, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Why does it keep?
Ma'am, come up and name and.
Marta Peck, 90 Jameson. On this drawing, I note that just north of Building 7 and behind Building 6, there's a 5-foot wide pedestrian access. What is that?
During initial staff discussions, as well as the Planning Commission meeting that we recently had, there were discussions about making sure that we left a 5-foot, oh, now I did it. That we left a 5-foot break in 2 locations within the buffer landscaping, so that if the adjoining property owner wanted to work cooperatively, there would be an ability to have accessibility for the residents from this multifamily development into this site. So that was done at the request of staff and the Planning Commission.
I'm sorry, did you ask for standing at the beginning of the meeting?
No, I bursted out.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? One more gentleman, thank you.
Hi, I'm Dave Lynch. I live at 42 Mount Zion Road. I just had 2 concerns. If you look at the wet,
We're
Are these
talking
questions
specifically
or
about
comments?
questions.
Okay,
but I'm laying into, the groundwork for my question.
Okay.
It's short. If you look at the west side, the north side, and the east side, it's mainly residential around the complex of proposed development. I had 2 questions. One is, what kind of landscaping are you going to put along the perimeter on the west side, the north side, and the east side to maintain some kind of privacy for the residential areas? And my second question is about the lighting. Is it going to be lights on 24/7? The sign light's going to be on 24/7? Right across the street from the proposed entrance and exit on Mount Zion Road, I'm going to have headlights shining in my front window as it is when people leave it at nighttime. I'm just concerned about the lighting and any kind of landscaping.
And if I could, Mr. McKenna, I think that maybe you can address this, although Mr. Riggle would be able to as well. I've lost it again. Yeah, now I can't get it to switch back. hold on. Can you get us back to that plan?
You just click the center one, is that what you're clicking?
Well, I'm trying either
Is it
one.
the center one?
Yep.
We're on the right one or the wrong one?
Which slide did you want to go to?
Was the applicant's exhibit 3, I don't know the specific slide number. Keep going back, though. Back one more. There you go. Oh, there you go.
Okay, so, Mr. Lynch, over here, you reside in this area. This is Building 7. Right now, we do show the street trees there. They are required per the ordinance. Those street trees are either going to be on this side, depending on the gas line, or on this side of the sidewalk. But there will be trees planted in that area. There's also going to be a slight grade change. It's going to be at least 6 foot, the parking lot's 6 foot lower than up here at the road. So if we plant a 10-foot tree, say, you're already 16 foot up from this area. So you're not going to see any vehicles driving around in here.
And John, there's no parking in that location that would be facing the roadway.
That's correct.
Down further on the site, just for clarity, in case the question comes up, where you do have some parking along the street, is there also a low hedge row of vegetation, as would be required by the ordinance to help screen those types of things?
Yes, we're going to have street trees and hedges on the inside of the sidewalk. And then also, again, the cars that are parking faced out, you're not going to see it from the road here because that's going to be at least 6 feet below the street level.
And then the north and the east side of the site, is there a significant proposed vegetative buffer along the boundary of the site?
Yes, it's very, very densely landscaped with trees throughout here. Do we have the numbers of trees? So
this is Chris. I can provide that testimony when I go through my stuff.
okay, thanks, Chris. He's the
Yeah.
civil engineer.
Mr. Lynch, would that suffice to have the expert provide you with your answer on the tree?
Yes, and then to my second question, as far as the lighting, I believe you said earlier that it's going to be extensively lighted. Are those lights going to be on 24/7, or are some going to be shut off between, say, the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m.? Am I going to have that 18-foot lighted sign, I presume, shining through my front window? They're valid questions.
As part of the land development process, if we get to that point, at that point, we would be submitting to the township a detailed lighting plan that had the photometrics on it. So we are required after a certain distance for the photometrics, the lighting to drop down to certain levels. So we're going to meet the ordinance requirements of that.
Okay, thank you.
One more follow-up.
My question is, can you tell me more about the apartments, studio, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom? What kind of population are we looking at for them? And how much parking is available for the residents?
The units the unit makeup is going to be roughly 50% 1-bedrooms, and the balance will be 2-bedrooms. There will be some studios in there as well, but a smaller percentage.
All right, and what kind of population are you aiming for? Is it luxury apartments? What's your price range?
Well, the price point has not been established yet, but I'm sure the market rates will be determined by demand.
And parking, how many parking spaces per unit?
We will be providing 1.5 parking spaces per unit. We went through a detailed analysis of that this summer for the parking variance that was granted.
All right, I'll save my comment on that for later.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Anyone else? All right, Ms. McNeil, let's move forward.
Thank you. I'd like to move to our testimony with Mr. Riggle.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for allowing me to be remote tonight as well. I'm a little under the weather, so bear with me.
And Mr. Riggle, just how are you employed?
Yes, my name is Chris Riggle. I'm a professional engineer in the state of Pennsylvania. I work for Collier's Engineering and Design.
And have you been involved with and prepared many of the site plans that are part of this exhibit packet and the applications that have been submitted?
Yes, I've been intimately involved with this entire process. And just to add, I've been practicing civil engineering for over 20 years.
I'm showing you what's next in our exhibit here and as part of the prior submission. Was there an ALTA survey performed on the existing conditions of the site?
Yes, there was.
And
This is the ALTA survey.
And this ALTA survey shows all existing structures, utilities, easements, et cetera, on the property.
That is correct.
Moving to the updated site plan, applicant's exhibit 7. First of all, are you familiar with the zoning requirements in the mixed use zone?
Yes, I am.
And is there sufficient road frontage for this site to meet those requirements?
Yes, there is.
And I'm going to move to the zoning data that was provided in the guidelines packet. And let's talk about the parking spaces. So how many parking spaces are being provided?
There are a total of 490 parking spaces total.
And how many spaces would be required for this site, taking into account the zoning relief that was previously received?
400 are required.
Okay. And obviously, those spaces cover the entirety of the site. Some are closer proximity to the multifamily, some are closer proximity to the restaurants. But overall, the entire site has 90 spaces over and above what is currently required.
Yes, that is correct.
And are there dumpster areas that are shown on applicant's exhibit 7 for each of the uses as necessary?
Yes, there are, I'll say, dedicated dumpsters for each of the uses, for each of the different buildings and uses on the site.
And can't see it here perfectly, but will those dumpsters
Perfect.
Will those dumpsters be enclosed within a decorative trash enclosure as required by the ordinance?
Yes, they will. They'll look like the one on the screen there in the lower right-hand corner.
Do you understand that the maximum impervious coverage of this site under this zone is 85%?
Yes, that is correct.
And what is the proposed impervious coverage?
We're currently proposing 79% impervious coverage, which leaves us with about 21% of the site will be green, which is equivalent to 2.5 acres.
2.5 acres of green space are proposed to remain.
Yes.
Okay. The minimum setbacks and side yard setbacks and rear yard setbacks, are all of those setbacks being complied with?
Yes, with the exception of the modifications.
And the modification has to do with the maximum setback, not the minimum setbacks.
Correct.
Okay. Now, going back to here, I'm assuming at this point you have not completed a full stormwater management report.
We have not, no.
If this town center conditional use is approved, this project will move through preliminary and final land development plans?
Yes, that is correct.
And during that, is there state and local permitting that is required to manage erosion and sedimentation control as well as post-construction stormwater management?
Yes, we will have to comply with all local, state, federal guidelines, and as well as permit those stormwater BMPs.
And generally, what is your understanding of how or where you will manage that stormwater on site?
We are envisioning a series of underground basins that would be under the parking lot. They would be connected to each other and then eventually discharge into the storm sewers in East Market Street.
And do you believe in your experience that the stormwater will be able to be managed in accordance with those state and local requirements?
Yes, I do.
I think we had a little bit of discussion about the streetscape along East Market Street. Can you tell us what the required streetscape is and whether it is being provided?
Yes, along East Market Street, they're required a 12-foot wide sidewalk, which we are proposing with a 8-foot planting strip. And along Mount Zion Road, it is a 5-foot sidewalk that is required and a 5-foot wide planting strip.
And does this applicant's Exhibit 3 show all of the required street trees, street benches, and pedestrian lights as required in the town center overlay?
Yes, it does.
And will those pedestrian lights meet the height requirements under the town center overlay as shown in the design guidelines submitted to the township?
Yes, they will. Yeah, there's a minimum height for the pedestrian lights along the street, a minimum of 10 feet and a maximum of 12 feet, which we will meet that requirement. And then the parking lot lights have a minimum of 15 feet and the maximum is 18 feet. So we will comply with that as well.
And as you heard Mr. McKenna testify, you will be providing a full photometric plan during the subdivision and land development phase.
Yes. And to answer the question about, some of the residential properties that abut our property line and with the lighting, we're going to, if there'll be wall packs on some of the buildings, and we'll also do an analysis, obviously, at the property line to make sure that there's no light spillage onto the adjacent residential properties. And there's also shielding that we can put on fixtures as well to eliminate that spillover as well.
And do you want to provide the information regarding the landscaping to attempt to answer the question that was asked regarding that?
Yes. So on this plan, and it may be a little fuzzy, but so there are multiple landscaping requirements that we have to hit for the ordinance. There's a very extensive buffer yard requirement because we are adjacent or abutting residential properties. We have American holly bushes, red cedar, serviceberry, redbud, bayberry, inkberry. These are all, standard to Pennsylvania. There's also a list of allowable plantings that the township has that we're proposing as well. We have street trees that are out here and then the interior lot landscaping as well that we're proposing.
Sorry, I think I went out. There we go. Going back to applicant's Exhibit 7, the updated site plan, did you add a couple of details to this plan from the last submission that had been made to the township to address the comments that had been made by the township engineer?
Yes, we added the additional radii was a question, or radius that was brought up in the letter. We've added that detail to the plan. There was also an additional crosswalk that was added to the plan as well. So I believe that we have addressed those couple comments that were in that letter.
And moving to applicant's Exhibit 8, which is an updated traffic circulation plan, did you make a minor modification to this plan to address comments as well?
Yes, we did. We added additional circulation to the plan. The view on the left hand is fire truck circulation for fire trucks to access the buildings, and then all the drive aisles, and then the view on the right hand side is our delivery trucks to each of the individual uses.
I have no further questions for Mr. Riggle, as I believe a lot of his testimony was actually covered by Mr. McKenna, so we would welcome any questions for him.
Board? Any questions? No. George?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay.
Bishop? Okay. Anyone withstanding have a question for? Yes, Ms. Peck?
Marta Peck, 90 Jameson. Regarding the setbacks, I want to just clarify, the issue was not the minimum setback, but the maximum, which, am I correct that the maximum setback would normally be 50 feet and they're asking for 186 feet on Market Street?
Yeah, that is correct about the maximum setback.
And then also on Mount Zion Road, I think the minimum setback is 18, but the maximum is 50, but you're asking for 102 feet setback, so you can accommodate 3 rows of parked cars.
That exact number, I don't know if that is correct.
I calculated based on a parking spot being 18 feet deep. There's 3 rows of parked cars. There's 2 aisles of 24 feet each, and so that I came up with, I think, 102 feet. Okay. I wanted to ask.
I mean,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. No, yes, we are asking for relief for that maximum yard setback, if that answers your question.
Yes. I had a question regarding terminology regarding lighting. You said there would be no light spillage, and I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that means there wouldn't be direct light shining into windows. But what about the broader concept of illumination in the area so that the area is lit even though if you don't have lights shining directly in your window?
Yeah, so what I meant by that is when we do a lighting analysis or a photometric design, we design these light poles that are going to be at the required height, and then we model it. So we have to determine if there's any light at ground level at the property line. I don't know off the top of my head if it's 0 adjacent to the residential property, but we would comply with that code section.
It wasn't specifically part of your presentation, but in terms of lighting, would that also address the issue of having the canopy, the 5,300 square foot canopy over top of the 16 gas pumps that would be on 24 hours a day, and the type of illumination or light spillage that would create in the area?
Yes, we will model that as well.
Okay. And I had one additional question. You talked about an extensive foliage buffer yard, presumably between the apartment buildings and the residents, those of us that live in Springus Apartments. I've looked at not all the trees, but a number of the trees, and they grow to a maximum of between 8 and 35 feet. which will not, in fact, cover four-story buildings. So that, and I also point out that we're far enough north that deciduous trees are without leaves for 6 months a year. So there'll be a lot, potentially, elimination coming from them because the trees will not provide that kind of a buffer during those 6 months a year when they're leafless.
Is that
Is that correct?
Is that a question?
Am I correctly assessing that?
That I can honestly say I'm not a landscape architect, so I don't know the exact times and dates of the trees losing their leaves. What I can tell you is we're complying with the ordinance and the requirements there of the specific trees that are required. Can we look at changing some of the tree species? Potentially, yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else with standing questions for Mr. Riggle? Okay, Ms. McNeil.
Thank you. I'll call Mr. Craig Campbell.
Craig Campbell with Warehouse.
And generally, how are you employed?
Work for Warehouse for... Jeez. You got to really be on this. Okay. 29 years with Warehouse, 38 years overall.
In architecture?
Yes, architecture, correct.
And so I'm showing you what we have included as building elevations for the proposed buildings on site that are in the design guideline packet. And I'd like to ask you, have you overseen or created these building elevations?
Yes.
And are you familiar with the architectural design guidelines in the township's town center overlay?
Yes, I am.
Can you generally describe what some of those requirements are?
There's 25% minimum glazing required on certain facades. Also, they have a distinct 1 foot base of masonry that they would like to have around the base of the buildings. And we'll talk about that as we kind of go through. They also talk about the articulation of the top of the roof, where it needs to articulate up and down at I think, a minimum, or it's every 30 feet, you have to have an articulation of the top of the roof.
And so just looking here at this sheet, which is buildings 2, 3, and 4, have you designed these buildings and shown them in compliance with all of those requirements?
Yes, we have.
And moving on to what we're showing here, which I believe is the Wawa, and I may have misspoke, that may be buildings just 2 and 3, and oops, going too fast. And that's building 4 there as well. Again, are they designed in compliance with these guidelines?
Yes, they are.
And this is the 2 multifamily buildings. And will they be, first of all, similar architectural design for the multifamily buildings?
Yes, the same materials kind of will be throughout the project.
And do these buildings also meet the requirements of the town center overlay as to transparency, translucency, and the horizontal and vertical architectural distinctions that are required to be in place as set forth in detail on these exhibits?
Yes, we actually, our base actually goes higher than the 1 foot required.
And is there anything else that you would like to point out specifically for the board or mention to the board about the architectural designs for the project?
Not at this time.
I have no further questions for Mr. Campbell, but open it for architectural questions.
Fellow board members, questions?
Mr. Bishop? Okay. Any questions for Mr. Campbell related to the architectural presentation from people, from anybody that requested standing? Mr. Lynch?
Hello again, David Lynch, 42 Mount Zion Road. I have a question about the apartments, the proposed apartments. I can't really tell. I didn't get one of the handouts that were floating around. I guess you ran out. And from looking at the pictures, are any of these apartment buildings going to have outdoor balconies?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Peck? If we could please, if you're having a conversation, please take it outside so everybody can hear what's going on here. Thank you.
Okay, Marta Peck, 90 Jameson. I understand that the requirements, you're saying in terms of the architecture, I'm not sure how to phrase this, but in terms, there's two parts to the question. One is, how do these integrate with the existing buildings within the area? Because they are one-story homes, two-story brick apartment buildings, and these appear to be fundamentally different. So what efforts were made to integrate this architecture with existing architecture?
That's a good question. It has, some we're taking into aspect of what Wawa has. We're trying to use some of the stone aspect of the neighboring stone wall that's coming down as part of the architecture for these as well. And we have to meet certain requirements for materials with energy for the exterior wall with a 4-story product.
And I had one other question that goes with that. This project seems extremely willing to ask for waivers and modifications on other requirements like setbacks going from a maximum of 50 to 186 feet. Was there any consideration for asking for waivers, modifications, amendments, whatever, so that these buildings could be more appropriately integrated into the existing built environment? Thank you.
I'd like to at least make one statement regarding the ordinance and having to do with it doesn't allow sloped roofs. So these buildings need to have a flat roof and that cornice that kind of runs around per what it states in the overlay.
And if I could, Mr. Campbell, just as a follow-up to that last question, is it your understanding, you're familiar with this neighborhood, right?
Lived here all my life.
Okay. Is it fair to say that most of the housing and structures in the immediate vicinity are older housing stock?
That would be correct.
If you were building those homes today, would you build them in the same architectural standard as currently exists?
No.
I have no further questions.
Ms. Thibodeau.
You know my name. Two questions. Is there going to be elevators in the 4-story building?
Yes, there will be.
Okay. And the second question is for Chris. I didn't think of it till just now, but can I ask that?
Are you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
He was talking about the stormwater, and it sounded like he was talking about it was going to drain underground into large pools. So does that mean that there will be like underground lakes that people will be parking on top of?
No, it would be a manufactured, piped system with stone. It would be enclosed in pipes.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Okay.
Thank you. I'd like to move on to Mr. Eric Bounce. Can you give your name and business address and tell us how you're employed?
Yes, Eric Mounts with Traffic Planning and Design. Currently serve as a regional leader within the Transportation Planning Department. Have been with the company for over 20 years.
And do you have any licensures in transportation planning?
Yes, I'm a registered professional engineer in the state of Pennsylvania, as well as hold certification from the Institute of Transportation Engineers as a professional traffic operations engineer.
Generally, can you describe what the process will be from a very start, going back to including work you've already done, to actually being able to construct, to gain access in the locations? And let me go back to the site plan here. To gain access in the locations as shown on this proposed site plan.
Absolutely. So as described, the subject development and the access locations are to Mount Zion Road and East Market Street, which are both PennDOT-owned roadways. Given that PennDOT owns those roadways, there is a very specific process in order to gain approval for subject development to take access via those roads. It is a 3-step process with PennDOT in order to ultimately gain approval of what they call a highway occupancy permit is what is ultimately issued for that occupancy. The first step in that process is to file what they call a scoping application, which sets the framework for preparing a detailed traffic impact study. So that scoping application is filed. It has all of the particulars that would go into the traffic study that would be prepared. Things like the intersections to be studied, the time periods to be studied, the traffic generation and development, the access configuration, things of that nature. That application is filed. There is a meeting that is held with PennDOT. Representatives of the township and the county planning department are also invited to take part in that meeting. We leave that meeting with an agreement on an overall scope of the traffic study. So once that scoping application is approved, you move into the second phase of the project, which is to do a detailed traffic impact study. That traffic impact study is prepared in accordance with the approved scoping application. That is prepared by my firm. It is then submitted to both PennDOT as well as copies provided to township and county for review. There are third-party independent reviewers that represent each of those entities who complete their own reviews in accordance with their applicable regulations and standards to determine if the traffic from the development is adequately addressed and there are not adverse impacts. That traffic study will ultimately document a set of roadway improvements that are to be implemented with the project. Once the traffic study is approved, you then move to the third phase of the project, which is the actual design plans that go along with those approved recommendations from the study. Those design plans include all of the details on the roadway geometry, traffic signals, right-of-way, stormwater design as it relates to PennDOT improvements, ADA, sidewalk, things of that nature. Once all of those items are addressed by all of those stakeholders that were identified, everyone agrees that the plans, the traffic study, everything is in compliance with the applicable regulations. PennDOT then issues that highway occupancy permit, which allows for access to their roadways.
And so where is this project in that 3-step process?
So we are in the first phase of the process, which is the scoping application. We have been working through that scoping application at this point for over a year. It's an iterative process in the fact that we made an initial application based on the plan at that time, which was in the spring of 2022. We had the meeting with the scoping meeting with the representatives of PennDOT, the township, and the county. Received their feedback, made revisions based on the feedback and comments that were received. With the second submission, based on that second submission, there was a handful of remaining comments on the scope that were ultimately incorporated into a third submission. That third submission was ultimately approved by all parties for advancement to preparation of the detailed traffic impact study. Where we're at this point is there has been, through coordination with the township and reviews on the site plan, there is further refinements that have been made since the ultimate initial approval of that scoping application. So the intention at this point is we would do one final revision of the scoping application based on the plan, if we're able to move forward with land development, which that plan would be set based upon, obviously, input from this application. We would then be in a position that the scoping application would be approved, be consistent with the plan that is going to be advanced as part of land development. We would then use that to do the detailed traffic impact study. So I will jump to the question of why is there not a full transportation impact study available for this hearing? And the simple answer is it is that long process that I described to you, that three-part process. Typically that takes significant amount of time. We did not want to get into doing a full transportation impact study without having a plan that is set. We do that study, and there's decisions that are made based on this application that change the uses or sizes and things of that nature for this plan. That would make us go back and completely redo transportation impact study, which ultimately would be a little bit of a waste of resources for all of those stakeholders involved having to redo it. So the expectation is, following this hearing, afforded the ability to move forward. As I said, at that time, we would get a final approval of the scope and then move forward with a detailed traffic impact study.
And so as part of this, oh, sorry. Oh, sure.
If you could add, we did study 9 intersections already at length.
I was just going to get to that, actually. And so this document, which has been submitted to the township as part of this conditional use application, is this the existing approved scoping application?
Yes, it is.
And as Mr. McKenna was alluding to, did you, as part of this scoping application, already study a number of intersections, including taking traffic counts at those intersections?
Yes, there are a total of 10 intersections outlined in that scoping application that were agreed upon for the intersections to be evaluated with traffic impact study. So as part of that scoping process, we complete all of the traffic counts at each of those intersections, provided that information. We have provided all of the traffic generation associated with the development, time periods to be studied and whatnot. So as Ms. McNeil has described here, that document is almost 200 pages. There has been a lot of work that is done up front that is all part of the traffic impact study. So basically, when PennDOT approves that scoping application, they're approving the volumes that are ultimately going to be used for the traffic study, and then the traffic study focuses on the actual analyses and the scope of the improvements.
And I'd like to turn your attention to a document that was previously submitted to the Township TPT letter December 21st, 2023. And what was the purpose of this letter?
So the scoping application that was approved by PennDOT, as I mentioned, was approved in I believe it was May of 2023, based on the plan at that time. The plan that was filed with the conditional use application, as I mentioned, has slightly different land use mixes and sizes. So what we've done for purposes of this hearing is done a letter that compares the traffic generation of those two different scenarios. We took the traffic generation that has been approved by PennDOT based on the prior plan, compared that to the traffic generation of the current plan before you this evening, and demonstrated that the traffic between the overall traffic generation between those two plans are either comparable or the new plan is actually slightly less than what was ultimately approved. Point being is we do not envision if we are afforded the ability to move forward and resubmit the scoping application and move forward with land development, we do not expect changes to the scoping application that was approved. It would just be refinement in order to match the current plan.
And during that traffic impact study process with PennDOT and the township and the county, is it possible that improvements to some of those studied intersections could be identified?
That is correct. That is the point of the traffic impact study.
And do you believe, in your professional opinion, based on your experience, that with the identified improvements, that traffic generated by this site can be handled in a safe and efficient manner with the road network that exists?
I believe it will be, and that is the point of the overall traffic process. With completion of the traffic impact study, completion of third-party reviews by all of the project stakeholders, the ultimate goal is to comply with those regulations such that it creates safe and efficient roadway operations.
Is there anything else you would like to add this evening?
No, that is it.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Mounts, but we welcome questions from the board.
Yeah, I do have two, actually. Any improvements that would be required by PennDOT as part of this process? Who pays for those improvements?
The developer does.
Developer does. My second question, you mentioned the risk of moving ahead with a traffic impact study before the first step because of wasting resources. My question is, isn't there a risk that this board would decline your waiver of the traffic impact study being waived, which would in effect... Did you hear the first question? Okay, I'll repeat it. So my first question was the improvements that would be required as part of the process here by PennDOT, who pays for those? And the response was the developer would pay for those. My second question had to do with the statement that was made about they don't want to do the traffic impact study now because it would be, as I understand it, a waste of all the resources when what's being proposed now may not be the final outlay of these intersections. But my question is there not a risk that the township doesn't grant the waiver of your traffic impact study at this point? And doesn't that waste resources?
So is there a risk? Yes. But what I would tell you is that obviously this is the first step in an overall approval process for this development. There is, as I said, there's a litany of reviews that are going to be required. There's the PennDOT process, there's the township process that goes along with land development. There is going to be ample opportunity for review of this traffic impact study. We cannot move forward with this development until the HOPs are, it's the only access that is proposed for this development is to PennDOT roadways. We have to appease PennDOT, we have to obtain the permits, we have to work with the township on TIS approvals through land development. So if the board were inclined to approve this conditional use application, that's just the start in really the detailed engineering.
Thank you.
And if I could, just as a follow-up, Mr. Mounts, obviously, as you've shown, it's not like there really hasn't been significant work to date. If you had to just estimate, how many hours would you say have gone into just the scoping application, the traffic counts, and the data that has been submitted at this point?
I can comfortably say there's hundreds of hours of work that have been done to this point.
Thank you.
Do you have an estimate of what the total cost of doing the full impact study is? Ballpark?
Ballpark, all in, just for the traffic study, probably somewhere in the range of, so why I hesitated is, as I said, there's a lot of work that's been done that goes into that. So if you just take the overall process for a traffic study of this size, ballpark is about $50,000.
Was that 50 or 15?
50,000.
50, okay.
Mr. Bishop? Any questions? Anybody else? Anyone with standing have questions related to Mr. Mounts' traffic comments? Mr. Lynch?
Hello, Mr. Lynch again, 42 Mount Zion Road. Real quick, I had two questions. It's my understanding there's not going to be any traffic lights added on the Mount Zion side between Market Street and Industrial Drive. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And it's also my understanding, I believe I heard this at the last meeting I was at personally, and that was a zoning board hearing back in May of last year. I believe it was mentioned there was going to be a dedicated turn lane for southbound traffic on Mount Zion Road to make a left into the center off of Mount Zion Road. Is that still correct?
That is correct. That is the intention.
Okay, and right now there's a island that runs from Market Street up to the property line there at 34 Mount Zion Road and my house at 42 Mount Zion Road. From there northbound to Industrial Drive, there's a center turning lane. Now, are you going to extend those islands on each side to prevent the residents on the west side of Mount Zion Road from going north on Mount Zion, to make a left out of our properties to go north on Mount Zion Road, which we can currently do north of 34 Mount Zion Road?
So we had this specific conversation during the scoping process that we've had. The intention is not to restrict any turning movements associated with any existing properties as they exist today. So turning movements for individual properties would remain as they are today. We would be looking at modifying the design of Mount Zion Road. The median you mentioned would be modified. There'd be some roadway widening to get that left turn lane in but there would not be restrictions on existing access points.
Any further than where it currently ends at the property line north of 34 Mount Zion Road? That's where it ends. The current island there that runs north of Market Street along Mount Zion Road, it ends right at the property line between 34 and 42. You're not going to extend that northward at all, any kind of strips where we won't be able to, say, leave our driveways and make a left-hand turn. I know it only affects a handful of properties there, but it's important for us that, we can get in and out of our properties.
There's no intention to limit any turning movements from any of the existing driveways.
Okay, well, thank you.
Ms. Peck?
Marta Peck, 90 Jameson. I have two quick questions. In looking at the proposal that you're submitting to PennDOT, as I understand, you're proposing to widen Mount Zion Road from 7 to 8 lanes at the intersection and Market Street from 5 to 6 lanes at the intersection?
So the scope of improvements have not been identified completely. The conceptual discussions at this point that I believe you're referring to are related to each of the access points, one to Mount Zion.
Right.
One to East Market Street. The intention is for each of those respective access that there would be dedicated turning lanes in order to serve movements for that driveway. So separate left and or right turn lanes approaching each on Mount Zion Road. East Market Street has an existing center turn lane to serve left turning traffic that would be utilized for an entering left-hand turn. But as Mr. McKenna described earlier, the expectation is there would be widening on the northern side of East Market Street approaching the proposed driveway in order to provide a separate right-hand turn lane.
And while I haven't read the entire traffic proposal, the 200 pages, I've read a good part of it. What consideration, by what consideration did you decide to include or not include Eisenhower Drive in the scope of the intersections to be studied?
So the scoping application, as I said, includes traffic generation, so which is the amount of traffic generated by anticipated to be generated by the proposed development. It included detailed information on the routes of travel, on where the traffic from the development will be oriented to and from. PennDOT has guidelines that they use based on those distributions of traffic and how much traffic is traveling to and from particular intersections, and they ultimately make a determination based on their review of what those study area intersections would be. To your exact question, that the Eisenhower Drive intersection was not an intersection that PennDOT requested be included.
Okay, then as a follow-up, I looked in the zoning ordinance under 289-21, they talk about traffic impact studies. And in addition to critical intersections, high-volume driveways adjacent to or across from the site shall be identified. And Eisenhower Drive is the major ingress-egress for the 300 apartments directly behind this development. It's also how the school buses from 2 different school districts get in and out onto the highway. Also, Postal Service and all the other delivery vehicles and the staff of the Springett's Apartments. So I will ask later on, there'll probably be some place that I'll need to include that, because I think that's important to look at that data before we end up being landlocked in there.
Any other questions from those who are standing? Ms. Thibodeau?
You said you had to meet with all of the stakeholders, and I just forgot who all the stakeholders are, like when you talk about the traffic study.
Yep, so when we refer to the stakeholders, that would be representatives of PennDOT, the township, and the County Planning Commission.
No citizens?
No.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, Ms. McNeil?
Thank you. At this time, that concludes our case in chief. I would move for the formal admission of applicants' exhibits 1 through 8.
Okay, thank you. Anyone withstanding have any witnesses or comments to put on a case? Withstanding. We will go to public comment after that.
Jonathan Stair, 98 Eisenhower Drive. I was just concerned regarding the ordinance related to town center overlay and also mixed-use district. The town center overlay says such modifications of design standards should not result in adverse impact to adjoining properties or to future inhabitants within the town center. And I guess I'm trying to wrap my mind around how an asphalt desert topped by large boxes is not an adverse impact, particularly when that's what I will be seeing from my back window, from my back porch. I think it talks about, future inhabitants of the town center. If you look at the plan, in fact, it's right up there, you'll see that there's really no green space for recreation of the people who live in those apartments. And one of the purposes of mixed-use district is to encourage pedestrian activity. Right now, if I want to take a good walk, even though I live in the apartments, I normally drive, so I'm getting in my car, I drive up to Rocky Ridge Park to take an extensive walk. These people are going to have to drive somewhere, or unless they walk around our apartment complex, they have to drive somewhere to have some place to encourage pedestrian activity. Also, the applicants have asked to widen the driveways beyond the standard ordinance, and I'm not sure how that encourages pedestrian activity. For anyone who has tried to walk from this area to, say, Walmart, one of the most dangerous places to get across are the entrances to commercial and retail spaces. The mixed-use standard says that to minimize traffic congestion. I'm trying to imagine how another turning lane coming on southbound Mount Zion Road minimizes traffic congestion. In fact, right now, that whole corridor from almost up to Rocky Ridge Park down to Longstown is so congested. The other day, it took me, I sat in traffic basically from Market Street all the way up to Longstown. So I'm not sure that this is a good idea. This has been pitched as a town center, and as I mentioned, it's supposed to be pedestrian friendly. But right now, you're taking your life in your hands if you want to try to walk across Mount Zion Road or East Market Street. And as I mentioned at the Planning Commission meeting, my wife and I live only about 200 yards from the Paddock Restaurant. Our only impediment to get there by walking is Market Street. We literally get in our car to drive 200 yards so we can go out for dinner, just because Market Street is that bad. I just don't see that this is a good plan. The applicant talks about that conflicts with pedestrians and bicycles will be minimized. I'm not sure how people are going to plan to walk around a parking lot like that with cars going to various stores and restaurants, and there aren't going to be conflicts with pedestrians. In fact, at the Planning Commission meeting, it was stated, this will not be a pedestrian destination. That was stated, and I think if you look at the minutes, you'll see that was what was said. The applicant claims that they provide walkability for employees at the industrial facilities to the north. However, if we look at that plan, there are no sidewalks that run completely from this site up to those industrial facilities along Mount Zion Road. And again, that is a dangerous area. I tried to do it. I mean, it's less than a mile. I clocked it the other day. It's less than a mile from my house to the post office. For my physical health, I'd like to walk to the post office, but I literally cannot do it because there are not sidewalks up Mount Zion Road and to Concord Road. I feel this application has not addressed pollution concerns. We're adding more cars and trucks idling at an already overburdened intersection. We're talking about water runoff into big caverns underneath the parking lot, which will have gasoline, oil, and other pollutants dripping from vehicles, washing into our public storm sewers. Noise pollution. More cars and trucks are going to be starting, revving, moving through this already congested area. Even now, at rush hour, my wife and I keep our doors and windows closed because of the noise from Mount Zion Road. Just imagine this going on all the time. They've talked about lighting. Some lights will always be on, and even though they may not be directly shining into our apartments, there will always be that glow in the distance. And the light will glare onto adjacent properties, and it will trespass onto adjacent sites. I have some more general comments. Spring-Sperry Township does not need more commercial retail space. Most shopping centers and plazas in this township already have vacant or underutilized spaces, and all we have to do is look north to Galleria Mall, look west to Kmart Plaza to see areas that could be redeveloped rather than built on open green space. In fact, at the Planning Commission meeting, either Mr. Heilman or Mr. Luciani referred to, quote, the problem of the Galleria, unquote. Do we want to be referring to the problem of Mount Zion Commons in 10 years? Basically, if we approve this, we're saying, let's take the parking lot of the Galleria Mall and just drop it in this 12 acres with a couple buildings on top of it. We have lots of underutilized retail and commercial spaces in the township. Just between Mount Zion Road and Locust Grove Road alone, we have Lyle's Auto Parts, the Lincoln Way Flower Shop, and the Highway Oil Gas Station. I'd also like to address something else that has not been brought up. This entire apartment complex will be in York Suburban School District. Now, if only a quarter of those 170 apartments have at least one school-age child, Suburban will need to add at least 2 teachers to its staff. And as Mr. Sanders already knows, Suburban is strapped for cash and probably be raising taxes close to legal limit, and that the tax decrease which the board approved for the township will mean little to the people who have to have their school taxes raised. All this doesn't make any sense. I'd just like to close by saying that we are stewards of a public trust. We are rapidly losing open green space in Spring-Sperry Township. We need to preserve what we have so that future generations will not look back with the regret on decisions that we have made. At the Planning Commission meeting, just as an example, Attorney McNeil called the Columbia Gas Building an eyesore, yet it was barely visible until her clients cut the trees down that are around it. I didn't even realize it was there until recently. So my question is, what kind of eyesore will big boxes sitting on asphalt desert be? Do we simply want to transplant that problem to the Galleria, to the corner of Mount Zion and East Market Street? Thank you.
Anybody else with standing?
Mark Gebhardt, and I'm here as a representative of the manager.
Yeah, Mark, can you pull the mic up too, closer to your...
Mark, hello, testing, can you hear? How's that? That's better, okay. Mark Gebhardt, and I'm a representative of Manor Management Corporation. And Mr. Chairman and the board, if it meets your approval, I'd like to read a letter from Manor Management Group.
Please.
Addressed to the Board of Supervisors. It reads, gentle persons, Please be advised that our records indicate that the proposed Mount Zion Commons projects does not have a valid easement to connect their 11.9-acre site to our Springett's Manor Apartments, Eisenhower Drive, for the purpose of emergency access to Market Street. Moreover, we're alarmed due to the likelihood of flood damage to several of our two-story apartment buildings from excessive stormwater runoff resulting from paving 79% of the current wooded area that slopes towards our apartment development. These are concerns that we would like to share with the board. I have a letter that I want to hand deliver to the. Excuse me. Thank you. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else with standing?
Ruthie McConnell, 58 Eisenhower. Gentlemen, let's recall the massive debacle last year to Springettsbury area with repairs to the East Market Street underpass. Consider the upcoming traffic monstrosity when the I-83 expansion project begins, as many will opt to use our end of East Market to dodge that mess. We now need to be ready as a traffic nightmare is coming to our very own neighborhood that will be permanent. As newer residents of York, my husband and I realized one major disadvantage here was and is the dangerous traffic. When exiting our Springett's home, we utilize East Market or the other option, the Beast, aka Mount Zion. Hundreds of tractor trailers, trash trucks, Amazon trucks, postal trucks, school buses, moving vans, and our own family cars battle for a clear and safe stretch of road. Good luck. We soon all will be using the Frogger method to simply leave our driveways. We are equally amazed at the speeds cars travel in our area and that the township would consciously choose to add hundreds more cars and trucks to the mix, as it will dramatically increase the danger level. Let us not forget the loss of wildlife, as we do enjoy the deer and the bunnies and the squirrels and the numerous birds that circle above. This will affect me directly on my daily commutes for groceries, church, shopping, entertainment, or just driving to downtown York. I also fear living in the shadow of a 4-story high building that could possibly leave me in my first-floor apartment without a ray of sunshine. The glare of signage for restaurants, gas station pumps, 24-hour drive-through, with all the necessary lighting will affect my quality of life and cancel any sight of wildlife. I'd like to refer to page 11 of your spec showing a lady ready to cross the 2 visible lanes on Mount Zion, but is blatantly missing the 5 or more or other lanes traveling north and the already 6 carrying traffic south. Nobody with sense would chance walking across this extremely dangerous intersection for any reason. The proposed retail residential pad site will automatically increase traffic everywhere, is the making of a disaster of epic proportions. I'm saddened that we even entertained this intrusive expansion, as it will lead to the demise of the family-friendly feel of our current neighborhoods. Would the faithful residents of this area ever benefit from this monstrosity, considering the years it will take simply to build and there's a disruption until it's finished? I think not. Gentlemen, we beg you, hear us and protect us. Thank you.
Anyone else with standing?
My name's Julie Fry, and I'm a resident of Springett's Apartments, 92 Jameson Drive. I have been a resident for almost 7 years, and most importantly, a native Yorker. I share all these same concerns that my fellow residents are bringing forth tonight, But my concerns with Mount Zion Common proposal are the lack of green space, taking away the sweet, cozy, charming feeling of our neighborhood, light pollution versus the soft ambient lighting, giving a feeling of being surrounded by 3 4-story apartment buildings directly facing our 2-story apartments, which would feel like we're being encroached on, not to mention an eyesore to the neighborhood. Tenants of the 4-story apartments would have the ability of looking down on us and giving us a sense of no privacy. It would also feel like it was beginning to feel like a city environment, and if I had wanted to live in a city, I would have looked elsewhere to live. The 4-story apartments would block the view of the trees and other nature and skyline. I love pulling into Springett's apartments, especially at night. It has a sweet, cozy, and charming feel and soft ambient lighting. I know that when I look out of my dinette window, I will be looking up and see 2 4-story apartment buildings, which will have lighting on top of them, pointing down on the apartment buildings, illuminating from the 4-story apartments. And beyond that, the sky would be lit up from illumination of the canopies over the 16 gas station pumps and 3 spotlights pointing into the sky to shine on the American flag in the plaza 24/7. I am angry about that because it would be like daylight all the time compared to what we have now, which is a subtle, subdued lighting, quite a charming and cozy feeling. Part of this is because of the very large trees that buffer light from Mount Zion Road and mostly East Market Street, whereas all lighting will feel like an invasion of our beautiful, serene neighborhood. I am disappointed and quite frankly appalled of the thought of demolishing 3 historically significant properties to build yet another commercial development. It's rather insulting to physically erase generations of family history, York County history, and part of Springettsbury Township. It would be far better to preserve, repurpose, or restore these prominent landmarks. The Mount Zion Commons proposal feels as though there was no consideration of how we as current residents feel or would be affected. It's as though it's all about maximizing profits and commercialism and less about families and residential feel. This hurts my soul. Thank you.
Anyone else with standing?
Lisa Garlick, 58 Mount Zion Road. My husband Jeff and I are opposed to the Mount Zion Commons being located in a corner of Mount Zion Road and East Market Street for a number of reasons. 1, there are other places in the township with more room for development and more buildings standing vacant. 2, there will be more vehicle and foot traffic, more noise, and more lights 24/7. Number 3, the existing Springettsbury apartments and the new 4-story apartment buildings for 170 people will not be in a quiet, private environment. These people will hear a lot of noise from traffic, car doors slamming at the gas station all night long, and bright lights shining into their windows. Their quality of life will be diminished. All of our quality of life will be diminished. Vehicle traffic on both cross streets will increase, as will foot traffic from the nearby Yorkshire apartments. It will be harder for people living on Mount Zion Road to get out into the congested traffic. The deer living in the area will be displaced, so they'll be crossing street perhaps in opportune times for motorists, so likely will cause accidents on Mount Zion Road and East Market Street. There are properties of historic value, such as the Modern Air Motel and the old Bloomingdale Estate, which will be swept away and forgotten. These could have been preserved and renovated by the developers as unique, charming commercial venues of local interest. Thank you.
Ms. Peck?
I'll keep, oops. I'll keep my comments very brief because I think everyone else has said basically all the things that I'm most concerned about. In tracking back 2 years, this project was not possible 2 years ago without the township approving massive zoning changes to make it possible to put in 55-foot tall buildings versus 35, to be able to put in, to quote, what was called a neighborhood convenience store, to be able to put in gas pumps and put canopy and even an oversized canopy, and to allow drive-throughs for restaurants, retail outlets, and so on. None of those were permitted 2 years ago, and that was the concept that the township had. And then suddenly, not suddenly, over an evolutionary process, this began to change. The proposal came forth and all the steps were made, and I find them to be, I'll keep my mouth shut. What I find them is really disgusting and reprehensible, because it really appears that the developers have hold of the township, and that those of us that actually live here, you know, with our families, with our friends, that go through our neighborhoods, go shopping, that we don't count, that our neighborhoods can be destroyed on the basis of having a commercial need. Once the developer got all of the things that they wanted out of making the zoning changes and made these things possible, now they come back with a proposal that has all kinds of requests for amendments and waivers. In other words, the zoning doesn't mean anything. If you can get zoning changed to get anything that you want, and then if you can request waivers for no rationale other than this is what we want, then your zoning ordinances aren't worth the paper they're printed on. It's just a total waste of time, and that you've betrayed your commitment to those of us that are residents. Just a quick note. I'm not sure I'd like to live in an apartment facing a Wawa where the lights are on 24 hours a day. These people living in these 4-story apartments, do you honestly think that young families want to be in apartments where they stare out their living room window and that's what they see 24 hours a day? There's also concern I have about paving all this over, covering up 79% of the land. The heat that'll be generated by that. Right now, we've got an area that stays fairly cool because only a small portion of that land is covered over. You've got a huge field that absorbs massive amounts of water and doesn't radiate back heat. You cover 80% of that land, and it's going to soak up a lot of heat. It's going to get a lot hotter in there. There are just a whole series of issues like that that go on and on and on that make this really questionable. My friend Carol refers to the apartment buildings, and I have to throw this out. She refers to them as file cabinets with parking lots. And that's really what they look like. So I hope you'll really seriously consider this and decide that this is not what we need in this neighborhood. Thank you.
Anyone else with standing?
I promise I will be brief. This one? Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have lived in Springettsbury Township for 55 years. The last 7.5 years, I've lived at Springettsbury Apartments. There have been several apartment complexes built in this area over the last few years. The Pleasant Valley Townhomes on the corner of Pleasant Valley Road and Mount Zion Road. Okay, Stony Brook Gardens on Theater Lane, which looks down on East Market Street. And presently under construction, Fallbrook Flats on East Market Street. The need for more apartments appears to be an alternative to the high cost of building or buying a home with heavy mortgages and taxes. Unfortunately, this planned development of Mount Zion Commons with 170 apartments drive-through restaurants, convenience stores, other restaurants, and a 16-pump gas station placed adjacently to two already heavily traveled roads will cause more congestion than we now have, which often leads to accidents. The development is neither feasible nor fair to the people who live and work in this area. Thank you.
Lisa Dump, 73 Mount Zion Road. We have a flash drive. Could they put that in and access a few pictures or not?
Are you submitting that as evidence?
Yeah, just of what I'm going to be speaking about, yes.
All right.
Is there anybody
before
that
we do this,
can
I'm gonna need
put those up or not?
Are we going to, can we take a 2-minute bathroom break?
Sure.
So, I guess my concern at this point is if this is gonna go on for a while, I had set 9 o'clock as the end of this for tonight. Do we continue this meeting and move to another date and continue this? Or are we gonna keep going tonight?
So the applicant would request, it appears to me that we are at the last or maybe the next to last party.
Can't hear you.
I would have said that 3 people ago. So
actually that one's not working. Based on the actual list of parties, I do believe have been checking them off. We're almost at the end of parties. So I guess I would ask if the board's due consideration, perhaps we could go a little bit further. I think that based on what I'm seeing, with my experience, I think we could be concluded this evening. And I guess we would request.
Before we show evidence, I'm going to take a 2-minute break.
Yes, sure.
Okay, again, Lisa Dumps, 73 Mount Zion Road. I have a couple concerns, but the one, 3 years ago, I applied to the township to build a garage. I'm a 31-year resident. I've lived at 73 Mount Zion Road for 31 years, and a lot has changed in those 31 years, and I feel like I'm always trying to protect my property from what's going to keep happening. I find myself here every couple of years, okay? You know, we got the Lidl grocery store turned down, and now it seems like we're being punished and getting worse than that. Now we're getting a 16-pump gas station and 4-story apartment buildings and so forth. That is worse. I wish the Lidl grocery store would have gone in instead. But 3 years ago, I applied to the township, and you graciously permitted me to build a garage at my property. But I had to make sure that it aesthetically matched the existing property and those surrounding areas. So I wanted to show you pictures of my garage. I spent $50,000 on my garage to make it aesthetically matching the neighborhood and my house. I had bricks that were dyed, the same color as my house with the same black bricks here and there and so forth. I had lime and brick come in and do it. The concern was I would make a pole building, and I'm like, I would never do that. I love where I live. I love my neighborhood. I wouldn't want an eyesore there. And now I'm being faced with 4-story apartment buildings that the gentleman over here said himself, they didn't really think of what material to use to make it match the existing, neighborhoods. They didn't think of it. They don't care. And somebody said, well, I guess you did, would you build it in this day and age to match those? No, you wouldn't, because you don't want to spend the money for your luxury apartment to match, or you would build it out of brick. I built my garage out of brick to match the existing properties, not only of my property, but of the apartment buildings behind. So if you ever go onto my property, 73 Mount Zion Road, you'll see that I have an existing garage that was built in 1936, and people are hard-pressed to know that the new one that was built 3 years ago by the Amish, I brought the Amish in, actually wasn't an existing building. A lot of people think it was there for just the same amount of time. So that shows you the effort that I made to keep the neighborhood aesthetically pleasing. And now we're going to get 4-story. Why don't we compromise and do 2-story apartment buildings. I know it's going to be developed, okay? I know that. But why 4-story buildings? You know, I drove out to McDonald's today to bring back breakfast from my 94-year-old mother who lives with me. And I took some photographs on my way back of the ones that Inch & Company had started out there near McDonald's. I just took them as I'm going by because they're now building 2 right almost on the road. And they're 3-story high, and they look horrible. They're very offensive looking. And people have commented on the site, the neighborhood site, that they live a mile or so around there, and they're really offensive to them, especially the ones that are being built close to the road. And now you put another story. I mean, I wanted to show you photographs of those 3-story ones and my garage to show you. But if you put another story on top of those, how offensive, how ugly, how irresponsible, okay, we're being to allow those to go in. Okay, and my other thing is I travel out of Mount Zion onto Mount Zion Road daily from Eisenhower Drive because I live on the corner, okay? And there is a window of time, no matter if you're going to turn left or right, there's a window of time when up at the intersection at Market and Mount Zion, the traffic lights will change, and you have a small window of time to make either a left or a right turn before traffic's bombarded, okay? I already spend sometimes 5 or 10 minutes sitting there to get out, okay? Especially when you go from 3 o'clock to around 6 o'clock. School buses are coming in, mail trucks are my mail's delivered at 5 o'clock. It's horrendous, okay? I'm afraid to go out and get my mail. My mailbox has been knocked off and dragged down the road 3 times since I've lived there, okay? So my thing is that window of time, if you look at that, can we have the map put up there of the beautiful new entranceway from Mount Zion? Can you put that up there again? Do you see where the exit from Mount Zion Commons is going to be? It's far enough down. I guess you can't do it. But when that light changes to give me that window of opportunity and all the elderly people that live behind me in those apartments that have to go in and out, and somebody said that that's what do you guys call it? The beast to go out there. You know, I even trim my big sycamore tree. I trim those limbs down all the time to make sure that people can see the stop sign there, because I'm afraid that somebody's going to just barrel out there and be drugged down like my mailbox was. But there's a window of time there, and with that new entrance and exit on Mount Zion Road, my window of opportunity to get in and out, left or right turn, is going to be gone. Because those people exiting, okay, from Mount Zion Commons will eat up my little window of time that I have, because they'll be coming down too, all right? And they're upstream, I want to say upstream from me, just like the rainwater will be coming down at me too. You know, we had to build underground trenches underneath our garage to make sure that the runoff from my garage roof wouldn't interfere with the people who live down the road, because the grade is going down as you go down Mount Zion Road. And they already, whoever lives down there, down beyond me, they get water already in their yards. Does anybody live down there? Do you not get water in your yards down there already? I don't, because my house is kind of the crest. And then from there on, it's going down, okay? And so they made me do things for a garage that you guys aren't requiring for this development. It just doesn't make sense. And these are aesthetically ugly buildings. The ones in Inch & Company, I don't know if I heard they're not completing them now, somebody else is out there. They're ugly. They're ugly. I can see these becoming, like somebody said, within 10 years, this is going to be Springett-Sperry Township slums, okay? They look like Soviet-style buildings. Okay, I used to teach world history at Elizabethtown High School, my E-Town shirt. I used to show the kids all the construction that went up, okay, during the Lenin and Stalin era, just to provide housing. That's what these things look like. Does anybody agree with me? It looks like Stalin. It looks like Soviet-style housing. Okay, Soviet-style housing is going up. And these are going to be, you know, the future, what they're made of, what they're built with, and who's going to want those apartments. Anyways, overlooking 16-pump gas stations.
I'm not sure stylistic comments are actually testimony.
Okay, well,
it may not be to your taste.
Okay,
it
can
may
I say
be
they're
to
going to be
someone
quite
else's
different
taste.
than the surrounding area?
So,
Okay, quite different.
Remember, we're speaking towards the conditional use.
I'm the one that's going
hearing.
to have to live next to them. You're not. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. else with standing? Ms. Thibodeau.
All right, I will skip my name because you already know it. But I've lived in Spring Gatsbury Township since 2018. I wasn't planning on staying in Spring Gatsbury for more than 6 months, but 6 years later, I am still here. And why? It's because Spring Gatsbury Township hooked me. I like living here, and I started to care. I almost wish I didn't at this point. But I know that you, the board, the Spring Gatsbury Township supervisors care too. I also want to thank the Planning Commission for consistently voting against Mount Zion Commons and against the zoning changes that allowed for this proposal to even be considered. And I want to thank the York County Zoning Board for that as well. But many of the Spring Gatsbury residents have already expressed their concerns, so I'm not going to go into detail, but I will mention the traffic, the lack of green space. I heard an interesting tidbit the other day. He said that there will be 2 acres, which that sounds like a lot of green space when it's 12 acres. But I also learned today that we blink for a total of 23 minutes a day, but it's so spread out, you don't realize it. And that's what the 2 acres is going to be. It's so spread out, you're not going to notice it. There's the issue with the lighting, the issue with the pollution, the danger to pedestrians, the disregard for the history of the township, the disregard for the quality of life for their neighbors. And I want to add trust. I really trusted that the developers would consider the needs of the community when they put this proposal together. But that was really naive on my part because the opposite is true. They have been busy changing the zoning laws and rules to meet their needs. And they will say whatever it takes to get the development passed. There have been so many statements made by the representatives of Mount Zion Commons that are blatantly disingenuous, pedestrian-friendly. People will walk here over lunch. They will honor the history of the area, luxury apartments. The storm drains will be big enough. The trees will provide privacy. Traffic flow will not be impeded. The quality of life will be enhanced. This is a town center. All of these are pipe dreams. I'm sorry. But they continue to say them. And what good will they be to Spring Gatsbury Township? That's the other question I get. Well, the tax revenue, of course. I know that you guys are interested in getting the tax revenue for this area. And once again, a big, big thank you for the 12% cut in the municipal real estate tax. How often does that happen? I've never heard that happen, and I appreciate that so much. So now, since we have that, let's take the opportunity to do this right so that any development will successfully meet the needs of the community and the investors. I would like to propose a concerned citizen committee that works in collaboration with the developers and the supervisors to make Mount Zion Commons the town center that it deserves to be. And I trust that the supervisors will see what the developers are up to and vote it down. Thank you.
Else? Okay. Do you want to do your 2 minutes now or wait until public comment? Ms. Attorney McNeil.
I'll do them now, and then that would be the conclusion of, I guess, the evidentiary proceeding prior to the public comment. And I appreciate the board's time tonight. I appreciate you extending our time for a brief period here so that we could conclude this hearing this evening. As the board knows, this area, this corner, which is zoned mixed use and with the town center overlay, has been targeted for development and has been an identified area for development and redevelopment for many years for this township. And several people have attempted it, unfortunately unsuccessfully because the site itself has numerous challenges one, as you've heard in particular, and you know, with the gas main is one of the really largest challenges. Second challenge is really just frankly access to the site is a significant challenge. The other challenge has been previously consolidation of properties. This is the first developer who's been in front of the township who has successfully been able to consolidate all of the properties that are zoned mixed use and in this town center overlay to be able to build one cohesive development on the site as opposed to separate town center overlay developments on every one of those existing 13 parcels of land. We believe that given the unique constraints of this site and its unique situation, that the modifications are appropriate. And again, I know the board is aware those modifications aren't really for the impervious coverage or the height or the types of uses there. They're modifications that relate to the specific design standards that we discussed that are due to some of the unique situations we're working with here. This is essentially the same plan that was presented to this board, I believe, in May of 2022. Really, the main significant changes to this plan have come about as additional parcels have been put under contract as this developer has worked with other property owners in order to provide this one unified development of this area as opposed to individual fragmented development that could potentially happen if the project weren't able to be developed in one cohesive development. And so we appreciate, again, the board's time tonight, and we appreciate your consideration of this matter.
Thank you. Public comment?
That concludes the evidentiary portion of this hearing. Yes, well, public comment. Mr. Chair, I'll leave it up to you in terms of timeframes. I know you mentioned 3 minutes.
If there's anybody who was not sworn in who would like to make a comment this evening, assuming we're not going too late here because getting to be 9:30 now, maximum of 3 minutes apiece. So please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Tom Small. I live at 160 South Royal. Last month, I spoke with Mark about a couple issues, and he basically told me, we talked about this project, and he basically told me it was a fait accompli because the developers have, all the cards and the money, et cetera, so there's very little the township could do to prevent such developments. By the way, did you get my stop sign reversed yet? Okay. I think it's really disappointing. Again, I don't live near this project, but on Friday, I will have lived in Spring-Springs Township 34 years. And that says something about my investment in the township. And during that time, I've seen the township change a lot. And I don't think that we've been good stewards, okay, of what we need in terms of managing our environment, okay? I'm not opposed to Wawa coming here. I love Wawa, all right? But put it out in the parking lot like the Galleria, like Red Robin did. Put it out there where, you have existing land. Do you realize that over 30% of retail and commercial space in Spring-Springs Township is vacant? That's ridiculous. And yet we want to build more? The cost of this is ultimately going to affect us. The cost of our time for traffic, because we don't have a traffic plan yet. This project today, the presentation, was full of holes. There was lots of, we'll look at it, we're working on it, we don't have it, etc. How could you grant anything, even conditionally, based on this presentation? They are not ready for prime time. So consequently, I ask you, and I've never lived in my 70 years almost, I've never lived at a time where politicians, public servants, don't listen to the people. We don't want this. The people in this township don't want this. There's other ways to make this happen, but not at the busiest intersection in Spring-Springs Township. Thank you.
I have one comment.
Name and address, please.
Oh, okay. Antoinette Orwig, 10 Eisenhart Drive. And I live right where you come in. So therefore, I'm going to get all these lights no matter what you do. But there's one thing that makes me ashamed, that my grandfather and my uncle were architects. You build something, you don't take into the fact that there's no place for children to play. Those kids are going to be out there on the streets with their bicycles. They're not going to walk on the sidewalk because the people will be there, you're saying. You didn't leave enough parking spaces. I lived in a condo. We had 1.5. Almost every person had 2 cars. My daughter lived with me for a while and had to park up the road in dark and walk down to come home every night after work. Now, this is what you're going to cause. You don't have enough parking spaces for the restaurants, let alone your apartments. You have no place for the kids to play. You know where they're going to be. They're going to be behind my place on the playground, or they're going to have their friends take them in as guests to the pool. And so all of us that live around the pool are going to have twice as much noise. You didn't take into any consideration the people that live side of where you're going to build. Yes, you're going to build it, we know, but get rid of the apartments. That's the big drawback. Yes, that's going to bring you a lot of money, but you can't put in a 4-story where there's 2 stories. And you're not leaving anything for handicapped people. I mean, I couldn't even afford to move when they're finished. And I've lived in Springersbury off and on for 70 years. I lived here when Finley Street was only 2 blocks. And that, you guys have lived here that long. You remember that. I mean, Lincoln Woods, you zoned that, Fat Daddy's. My aunt got married there. That was the most beautiful place. What is it now? What have you done to Springersbury Township over these years? Stand up for the people that's put you in office. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Philip Cohen, Esquire. I live in Longstown Village. I promise I'm not going to scream at you. Philip Cohen, C-O-H-E-N. I live in Longstown Village, 4032 Wood Spring Lane. I just wanted to comment on this latest, greatest proposed addition to an area of Springersbury Township where evidently its heyday has been long gone, but not forgotten by those of us who remember how wonderful it was to live in Springersbury and grow up here. To really remember that and to know it, you had to have been here for as long as some of these people have said they've lived here. I have to say, after hearing about this project, I mean, it sounds like a pretty nifty place to go hang out, have coffee, maybe have a nice lunch, a dinner, get your tank filled up. And probably the only one thing that's missing that would have made it perfect was a pickleball court. But the other thing missing from the Mount Zion Commons really is common sense. And it doesn't take expensive studies, timely studies, to realize this. All you really have to do is drive the Route 24 corridor every day to realize it. There was a time when Route 24, Market Street in Springersbury was only jam-packed bumper to bumper during the Christmas holidays. There's a song called If Every Day Could Be Just Like Christmas. Well, that every day has come to Springersbury Township. Again, all you have to do, and I have to do it every single day from Longstown Village, coming north and as far as Central High School. And it is, when I have to travel it, I get up actually an hour ahead of time just to be able to get out of Windsor Road, out of Longstown Village. Otherwise, I'm sitting in almost half an hour of traffic just trying to get out to 24. The roads, the fact of the matter is the roads in this whole town, really, of York, were not meant for the amount of volume of people that live here. And it's getting so bad that every day people are getting stressed, they're getting irritated, they're getting angry in driving. They drive like they're in bumper cars. They run up your tailgate. They try to zoom around you.
Please wrap it up. Time.
As I'm over?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Well, just want to say, please take into consideration those of us who live here, the developers, they make their money, they build it, and they go on to their next project. We have to live here.
My name's Ronald Rudisil, and I live at 119 North Rockburn Street. Rudisil, Rudissill. I understand that they want to build things because they want to make money. That's how it is in America. But that space of, that plot of land has no business having all that stuff crammed in there, because that intersection is one of the worst intersections in Springersbury Township. Everybody knows that. And I don't want it there. I suggest to them the old FinCorp site down the road. That's a real big lot, and it's empty, and it's available. But we don't need that there. At least we don't need everything crammed in there like that. Them apartments and everything, it's not going to work. It's just going to make things worse for the people that live here. So I said my piece.
Glenn Young. I'm from 3421 Stone Ridge Road. I am a resident of 35 years in the township, and I have a message this evening. My message is a unique place to live. Our world is changing, and what we do will define us as individuals and as decision makers in the community. As we review the current proposal for Mount Zion Commons, and developed by the Madison Development Group, the key question we must ask ourselves: is this project consistent with the purposes and goals outlined in Article 33 of the Town Center Overlay? It is my determination that this project falls short in 3 of the 6 provisions. First one, D, encourage a mix of uses with a focus on shopping and retail with community uses such as parks and plazas. This plan focuses on drive-through dining options and gasoline sales. The One Plaza seems to be an afterthought with its placement as a gathering space resigned to a life of noise resulting from the increased traffic congestion on the perimeter of the site. This proposed model of development, with its auto-centric features of drive-through lanes and gas convenience pass-throughs, continues the cookie-cutter trend prevalent in many towns today. This does not represent a well-thought-out plan that highlights the uniqueness and character of our evolving community. We deserve better. So the next question I ask is, do we need another gas convenience store site in the township? We currently have 9 or so gasoline locations throughout the township. It seems that the current demand is being met. Based upon future projections in the Lustline Bulletin, which talks about underground storage tank issues, gasoline consumption will begin to sharply decline by 2027, falling by half in 2035 relative to 2020. Given that there will be ever fewer gas stations, decision makers should guide projects to a low-impact location, at least 500 feet from the nearest home and 1,000 feet from a school. This is a safety zone. It is difficult to envision a situation where a gas station would be a compatible use in or adjacent to a residential area. This is why most zoning ordinances restrict these uses to commercially zoned properties. Some localities require a special exception or conditional use and a public hearing to determine if this will cause excessive impacts. I believe that's where we are today. The project will have excessive impacts on long-term residents living in buildings 1, 2, and 3, or whatever those numbers are, but anyway, the apartment complexes. The 16 pumps with their 3 underground storage tanks planned under this proposal will also have an impact. It is interesting to note that most modern gas pumps are required to have government-regulated vapor recovery units on their nozzles in order to limit the release of toxic gasoline and diesel vapor while a car is being refueled. When a tanker truck arrives to refuel the underground storage tanks at the gas station, a similar system of government-regulated vapor recovery units are required to be used. However, these units often fail. While vent pipes emit emissions from the underground storage tanks frequently lack adequate air filters. In addition, elevated levels of benzene related to gasoline fumes are part of a toxic mixture of volatile organic compounds. These compounds can lead to high levels of ozone, which are known to cause asthma and other respiratory problems, and according to the National Institutes of Health, leads to certain types of cancers. Countless research reports talk about the dangers of repeated exposure to liquid and vaporized
Sir,
gasoline.
you're at the end of your time. 3 minutes, thank you.
Hi, I'm Mel McConnell, 58 Eisenhower Drive, McConnell. My wife and I are newly residents here of your beautiful township. We came from Central PA 18 months ago, and we were on a search and destroy mission. For a week, we drove all over York looking for an appropriate place to stay, to live, to call home. And we found it here in your township. We love Springett's Township, Springett's Apartments. I can't sit here and let all these beautiful friends that we've made in the last 18 months speak to the problems that this will create for us without standing up here myself and telling you. I'm a retired teacher, and I know that children need time and places to go and blow off steam. There's no place to go for them in those 70 apartments, 30, 45 apartments. They've got to be some place to go. Where are they going to find it? Well, the closest places are beautiful lawns and backyards that we all have in Springett's Apartments. We have basketball courts. You know, we've got a dog box. We have it all. And what really enticed us as we drove around looking for a place, we passed a sign that said Springett's Apartments. Where? Where is this Springett's Apartments? It's back, 1 block back. But you'd swear to God you're in the middle of the woods. You're in the middle of the forest. It's a lovely, lovely place. And it doesn't have the lights blaring in, and it doesn't have all the other problems that are going to be created. Don't need to talk about the traffic. It's been belated and beat to death. Please, with your abilities, save our community and vote this down. Thank you.
Is there anyone else for public comment? So I have a message that was sent to me. I will read it. It's from Pam and Rudy Kochman and the staff of Kochman Insurance Group on the northwest corner of this intersection, specifically 10 North Mount Zion Road and 3215 and 3217 East Market Street. They are in favor of developing this corner, subject to favorable traffic and environmental studies, stormwater management, and other issues as mandated by the township. At this point, we have a vacant motel and 3 to 4 additional buildings that are poorly maintained and also largely unattended to. Just take a drive-by. This corner is quickly becoming an embarrassment to an otherwise gateway intersection into our township. Having a controlled development in place, again subject to reasonable zoning and land development, is much better than what we have now. Additionally, this corner will only get worse in its current state as time moves on and the real estate condition further deteriorates. In this instance, I truly believe that the status quo on this corner is the wrong direction for the township. Respectfully submitted, Rudy and Pam Kochman, for the record.
Any other public comment? So, Mr. Chair, we have a couple of different options here. You can, of course, deliberate in public. You can go over and we can caucus if you so choose, if you have questions. Or you can issue your decision and close out the hearing for tonight. But again, 45 days to issue a decision on this.
I think it would be wise to caucus for a couple of minutes to determine the right course of action here.
Mark, what is the capability of bringing Mr. Bishop into that room over there?
I can do that through the phone.
Okay. Don, are you okay with that, Mr. Bishop?
I couldn't hear it.
Via phone?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Nah,
Okay.
yes.
The chair is asking for us to caucus. So we're going to call his cell phone to bring him in?
Yep.
For that? Okay. Does that work for you, Mr. Bishop? Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So we're going to recess and go into executive session to discuss the hearing tonight. Okay, we'll be back.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate you all coming out tonight and speaking your minds very clearly with us. At this point, we have heard a lot of testimony from both the applicant and from the public. So at this point, what we have are some more questions internally for staff on some items, some more thinking that we have to do about this. Our final deliberation and decision will be at a public meeting. It may be the 14th. If it's not the 14th, it will be the following one, which would be 2 weeks after that, the 28th. 14th of March. So, so we're going to close this meeting out now, and we will, this hearing is finished. Testimony has all been heard. This meeting will close. We will make our final deliberation and decision at the meeting on the 14th. Have I outlined everything appropriate? Now, what we didn't talk about is, this is a conditional use hearing. This only would allow a developer to take the next steps to go to the land development process and to go for traffic studies and permits and things like that to move the project on. We're looking at probably, I don't know, we were kicking around probably 18 months, 2 years before this project would actually be underway. There's a lot of work left to do here. You heard a lot about what the traffic study entails. That's just one small piece of this whole thing. There's a lot of work left to do. So we have our homework to take all of the input that we got from all of you, and then we have to figure out where we're thinking and what we intend to do. So with that, I'm going to adjourn this meeting, and thank you all for coming. Meeting adjourned.